Hey, this is Larry the Cable Guy. Check this out. Me and my buddy was in my truck the other day running up there at the men's warehouse to fart in the suits, and he was listening to something on his phone. I said, well, that sounds like Hermie Sadler. He goes, it is Hermie Sadler. He's got a podcast called Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I said, the Senator? He said, that's his good buddy, Bill Stanley, Virginia State Senator. I said, you gotta be kidding me. They got a show? And he didn't know this. I said, did you know Hermie was voted one of the 50 best looking drivers in NASCAR? He said, I did not know that. I said, because it ain't true. He didn't even make the top 70. But you never know. He never takes his helmet off. But I'll tell you what, this show is unbelievable. So pull up a chair right there close to your phone. Get yourself a cold beer and give a listen right here to this week's episode of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. Because these boys will make you learn, make you laugh, and make you happier than a tornado in a trailer park. I don't understand why Michael Waltrip couldn't be this successful. Boy, that's good. Listen to this show, or you're a communist. Get it done.
I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Fox Sports analyst Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left, leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator.
Hello, Hermie Sadler.
Senator.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, buddy. How are you?
Good, good. We are here high atop the Stanley Law Group skyscraper overlooking the capital of the Commonwealth in beautiful downtown Richmond, Virginia, right here in the Stanley Law Group Conference Center, which is now our Stanley Law Group recording studio. We're going to have a special guest on in just a little bit, one of my great friends and a good statesman of Virginia. He's seen it all. He's done it all. He's got a hell of a story. Former Congressman Tom Garrett, who was a part of the Raucous Caucus in the Virginia Senate before he left to go to Congress. And now he's left Congress and he's back and he's going to be running for the House of Delegates, which that in and of itself, that pathway demonstrates he's got quite a story to tell. But how you been?
I look forward to that. Been great. A lot going on. Been busy selling fuel and operating businesses. I've been campaigning, knocking on doors, going to meetings, networking with business owners, and planning a fundraiser with Phil Vassar. A lot of stuff going on.
Talk about that fundraiser again for those that are listening. It sounds like an awesome concert to benefit Sadler for Senate.
Well, people that listen to this podcast know our entry, the music that we use in and out of commercials on this podcast we have since day one is that of my good friend Phil Vassar, fellow Virginian. And what a great song, Just Another Day in Paradise. But Phil Vassar is coming to Franklin, Virginia on Monday, March 13th.
That's the city of Franklin, not Franklin County.
City of Franklin.
Okay.
Southampton County, to a place called Main Event. It's like a banquet hall, banquet room in Franklin, Virginia. Southampton County. He's coming Monday, March 13th to play a fundraiser for Sadler for Virginia. And we also have David Sneed and JB and the Get Down Browns band
Sneed
playing.
Sneed's coming.
So
will he throw golf clubs?
Sure he will.
Could you get him a bag of golf clubs and have him toss them?
I won't get him to throw his guitar that night.
That'd be great.
That'd be a great thing.
Yeah, he's a great musician.
So that is Monday night, March 13th, and we put seats and tables. We're selling it individual seats, but also tables. And as of today, we've sold about almost 70% of all the tables in the banquet hall. We're getting close to 200 tickets sold already, and they've only been on sale about a week.
Wow. Now, if I was interested in getting a ticket and not getting a freebie from you, am I getting a freebie from you? No.
We've both got running tabs of things for each other.
No, that's very true. But I remember opening when you're
supposed to be
Senate,
speaking.
you got a big fat check.
You're supposed to be speaking that night.
Oh, okay. So does the speaker get a freebie?
The speaker gets a freebie.
Nice. What about the speaker's spouse?
Yes.
10 of their friends?
No.
8 of their friends?
No.
4?
No. It's a fundraiser.
How about a beagle?
We've already got 2 of you beagles, and we love them.
So where do you go to get tickets? Where do you go to get a table? How do you be a part of this?
www.sadler, SADLER, for Virginia, spelled out, sadler4virginia.com. But it's been great. Ticket sales are going great, and looks like early on, if things fall into place and it'll be about a $50,000 fundraiser for us.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Coming right out of session. That's amazing. That's got to turn some heads and maybe turn the stomachs of some competitors.
And like, Phil's music as well and all that. So to have a friend like him to be able to take a night out of his schedule and come over and play a fundraiser and help us raise money and, more importantly, raise awareness.
Maybe we should get him on the podcast before that.
Love to.
That way he can talk about it as well.
Love to.
But that's amazing. I mean, of all the campaigns that I've been involved in, the ones that I haven't been, that I've never seen, in all of those campaigns is a star with such star power coming out and playing a benefit concert for the campaign itself. I mean, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah. I got a lot of great friends, so we look forward to that. And we've also got
give them the way to get tickets again. One more time.
www.sadler4virginia.com.
Spelled out Virginia.
SADLERFOR Virginia, spelledout.com.
Will you have party time entertainment there?
Shep hadn't told me if he's available that night yet or not.
Is that right? He kind of holds out till the last minute, so he gets the top dollar.
He likes to be begged a little bit and
wanted and
schmoozed and whatnot.
Speaking of Shep, you know who we have with us again? Our number 3, our sidekick, our man purse, Shep Moss. Hey, Shep Moss.
What's going on, guys?
What are you doing there, buddy? Tell us everything that's going on in South Hill.
I don't know what's going on.
Big thing.
But he is grinning from ear to
big
ear.
Big things. What's going on in South Hill there,
Well,
Councilman?
before we get into South Hill, go back to the fundraiser. You were there the night Hermie announced.
Yes.
You saw the production, the crowd that turned out. It was electric. It was very energized, and that's what this Phil Vassa concert's going to be. I was lucky enough to see Phil back in April, I think, of 2022 with Hermie. Phenomenal entertainer. Sneed's going to light the stage up, so all the listeners, be sure to go get your tickets. It's going to be a great show.
Will we have you spinning stacks of wax to entertain the crowd before the star arrives of Phil Vassar?
Look, whatever the potential senator needs, I will always do my best.
Are you holding out for extra pay or what?
No.
So you might be bringing it to the house.
I could.
A little add-on, a little plus one.
Sure. Whatever he needs.
That's awesome, Shep. When Shep plays, it's all about the music. But when Shep's involved in politics, it's all about the documents.
Here we go.
So what's up with the documents?
Well, the ones that are not on fire that we were able to find have been.
And by the way, it looks like you're doing great with the
you're trimming out right there, bud.
with the weight loss challenge.
8 pounds. I'm just giving you a heads up.
You've lost
I'm down
8 pounds?
Yes. I'm down 8 pounds.
Can I? Oh, there he is.
Oh, here we there's my lettuce.
Some spring spinach for you, just so you can gnaw on that, so that you're not starving.
Everybody's going to be a funny guy.
I was over in Windsor, Virginia earlier today doing some door knocking. Then I cut through the country and met Shep over at the Slippy and Food Mart in Colonial Heights next to South Park Mall. Okay. And when I pulled up, Shep was coming out of the
lunch
out of the building with a Coke and like a 55-gallon drum of pork rinds.
Yeah, well, those are all protein.
And he ate most of them, I'll have you know. And it's a Diet Coke, by the way, with no sugar or calories.
Thank God you guys were never caught in a foxhole in France fighting for the United States, because you would have turned over everything you knew about to the Nazis. I'm telling you, you guys would sell each other out quicker than anything else. So for everybody who listens to the podcast, and I'm asked this all the time about my weight now over in the Capitol, because everybody listens to this podcast that's working in the Capitol. And they say, how you doing? How's Shep doing? And, I also, too, Shep, I got to tell you, I get another guy says, Shep is so funny, he makes the show funnier.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Can we get him on?
His last name was Moss, too. I don't understand it. But they ask me about it all the time. We have a weight loss challenge. We had one earlier. This is Weight Loss Challenge 2.0, where we put up another $500.
I'll let y'all win.
The big fat loser was Shep. He gained weight. You're
did.
supposed to lose weight. I lost 7 pounds. Hermie gained 0.4 pounds. So we decided to re-up the bet because we made the bet during the holidays, and maybe that was
charity.
a disadvantage. Yeah, it was for charity.
It was for charity. Come on.
Homeward Trails is getting a check for $1,200 and some odd dollars, and we put $500 back up each one of us to go to our favorite charities. What was your favorite charity again, Shep?
For this current one?
Correct.
I am
because the first
losing.
one didn't get squat.
I am losing.
Now, wait a minute. No, wait. When we asked Shep Moss what his charity was in this round, he goes, "Me. I need to make up for the $800 I lost."
I am losing so that the Virginia Association for State Police can win.
Ah, there you go. And Hermie?
Mine is the Hermie and Elliott Sadler Foundation, which I felt so strongly about the State Police Association. I sent them a check for $1,000, even though I didn't lose the
That's strong.
the challenge.
Wasn't that awesome?
Although I will say that Mr. Carrico, even though that was my intention, he still did not offer me a free get out of jail card.
Well, he's ready and willing to be the officiant once more for the weigh-in. We're trying to find the date. He's got to go get like hip replacement surgery or something that Monday or an MRI. So we're going to try to do it the Friday.
He seemed
that's
like he
a
was
week
pretty
from this Friday.
serious about moderating that.
Wait a minute.
He
a
absolutely
week
is.
from this Friday.
Correct. You're in your last throws, brother.
Oh, can
No
I bring
fat
my own
diet.
scales?
No, you cannot.
Because
But,
yours are rigged.
No, those are Hermie's scales, so you can't say that I'm rigging. I'm Hermie.
See, that's the problem. I don't have my scales at home anymore.
Oh, is
They're
that your
over
home
here.
scales?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So you don't know of all your progress that you're making.
I can tell you I'm not making progress.
I was going to tell you from this side, it didn't look like.
So I will tell you, January the 9th, I went in for my physical. You know, we talked a little bit about that. I was 249.
Mm-hmm.
This morning, I was 238.4.
Oh man. So, yeah.
Now, if I don't
And he
screw
said
it
it
up
with a straight
between now and next
face.
Friday, and anything's subject to happen.
And those pork rinds, they burn fat. They're a metabolism booster.
And no
right?
sugar.
No sugar.
No sugar.
That's-
I've got to watch my sugar.
Cutting out stuff actually helps, and then just eat, normally instead of seeing everything that you see on the.
The only
shelf at the
sugar I need
convenience
is my
store.
wife. How about that?
Oh boy, here we go again. Well,
It's Valentine's.
So, ladies and gentlemen, my winnings, because I've been losing weight and people are noticing, and I appreciate them saying that because I was a big fat dope before. But my winnings again will go to actually the Planned Parenthood of Franklin County. That's the SPCA. The Humane Society for Franklin County. They do a lot of great work, and a lot of our rescue dogs and cats have come from there. So, a week from Friday. Now, today is Valentine's Day. That's how we say it in Franklin County, Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day, guys.
Happy Valentine's Day.
So I want to know how each one of you managed to be here. It's, in the afternoon, late afternoon. How did you manage to be
Because
here? I'm away from my wife.
You sent us
So I got an excuse.
you sent us a group text about when we were going to record,
Not asking,
not
demanding.
asking, demanding, telling us when we were going to do it. And I brought up the fact that it was Valentine's Day, and you were like, whoop-de-doo.
Well, yeah, because it means nothing unless I'm home with my wife. So what did you do for your spouse?
Well, that's private information. What happens in the Sadler household first thing in the morning?
Oh really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
No wonder he had the
No, it's
energy
not.
to knock on
Remember,
all those doors.
We made a podcast, promised that we were going to sit and talk about, whatever came to the top of our head.
Yeah.
And so what came to the top of your head?
And I will say that once we finish this tonight, I'm going home tonight and have dinner with my wife at Faux Show.
Oh, very
This is the first time
Taking
in
her
this
to a
building.
fancy
It's
joint.
actually hot. It's stuffy in here.
Is it getting a
today.
little warm?
Yeah, it's getting
So
warm.
what did you do for your wife today for Valentine's?
I've been married to her for 30 years.
So you're just...
What's I got to do with today?
I said, I'm going to Richmond to do a podcast.
gift-
She said,
Tell
thank goodness.
Where's she at right now? Wait a minute. Shep is actually spending money to pay his wife to go get ready for tonight when he gets home. Is that not true?
She's going to do a yoga class.
He told her, give her $100, say, go get ready. Go
Get stretched out, get limber. I'm coming home.
So she's going to prep for the Moss train tonight.
Yeah.
The Moss train. That's with two S's, too. In case you didn't know.
So are you going to make her dinner? Are you going to take her out to dinner, Sheppy?
No, they're going to get right to it.
What's the setup?
They're getting right to it.
Just
She's coming home from the yoga session, limber, loose, and ready to rock. And Moss is just going to...
It's called a shark attack. Just bam. It's like a car wreck.
him smelling like male pheromones and pork rinds. You're going to be ready to rock, aren't you?
Oh, she's going to love it. She is going to love
The
it.
good news is, at our point in time, the pork rinds don't matter. I mean, wives don't kiss you anymore anyway, so
Oh, absolutely not.
that's not necessary.
This is what I have to look forward to. I mean,
Yeah.
I've only been married 10 years.
Oh, you're still on the honeymoon.
Yeah.
I'm 27, and how many of you?
I'm 30 this year.
Yeah, see.
Wow. So it's that blank stare in your face is really
Oh,
from
yeah.
all those years. And Yeah, for
My
me,
head's going to be in the pillow anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'd
Okay,
be
we
like
talk about anything
75 by the time that hits for me.
productive on this show?
No. I'm just trying to make sure
We got
that
a
you
great
guys are-
guest ready.
As you
We
can
got a
tell,
great guest, and we're
as
going to
you can
get to him in a
tell,
second.
It's all romance.
We're floundering.
Yeah.
It's
I
all
can,
romance.
well, I can tell you a couple things. You know, Shep, you're getting compliments here at the General Assembly about being the funny man.
Oh, wow.
So that was good. And then Hermie, today, a person walks in and says, we have a spotting of Hermie Sadler knocking doors in whatever county you were in.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, he's on it, man. And they're like, how many people has he signed up? And I said, 1,150. They went, you're kidding me. I said, no, 1,150. So when you hear it come back that you got 1,150 delegates, that was for me.
Great.
But, you know, it's got to make your opponent a little concerned, right? I mean,
I don't know. I'm focused on me.
have you been seeing any crossover where people are out trying to get the same people you're talking to, trying to get to the convention, or you got?
I was in Windsor, Alawite area all day today, and I don't know what the normal protocol is, but I'm gonna say today, if we knocked 60 doors, I bet 40 of the 60 I got invited inside to sit down and chat for 15-20 minutes.
Wow.
That's good. I mean, getting delegates, that's doing it the hard way.
You
going
actually
door to
told them
door.
who you were, and they still invited you in.
Isn't that amazing?
Now,
and it-
look, and how about some childish? I'm just going to call it what it is because Hermie posted this, so I think I can bring it up. And I'm going to call it what it is. It's just childish bullshit to have political signs removed.
Yeah.
That just burned my ass.
Yeah, that never happens.
That is childish bullshit.
That never happens.
I put 2 more out in the same place.
Did you?
The lady's house, who I know in Cortland, Virginia. I went by personally. Haley and I were going by visiting. I put 2 signs out in this lady's driveway, who I know, and she called me back 3 or 4 days later, and she said, "Somebody stole my sign." You know, so I went back this morning on my way to Windsor, and I put 2 out there this time.
So if you want like a pro tip when it comes to sign stealing, because if you've run in a lot of races, this is something that happens a lot. And usually it's the overexuberant young volunteers or people they see them and they keep driving by them on the route, and they wait till nighttime, they go out there and they grab it. They put it in the back of their car and they feel great about themselves. And then they probably get home and go, man, that's a misdemeanor. Maybe I should do something with it. So then they try to get rid of the evidence. What you do is when you put a sign back on, especially with your 4x8s. Now, you can't really do it anymore like I used to do it, but Vaseline the tops and the corners. And we'll talk maybe with Tom Garrett. Maybe he has a couple ideas as well. But I used to Vaseline the top, so when they grab it, it's slimy. And it's dark, so they don't know what it is. But then what I would also do is I would take, you remember the plastic cassette cases? You know, you have them for CDs too. Yeah. You crush those so they make jagged pieces, and then you stick it into the Vaseline pointing up. And so when they put their hands on the sign in the usual area,
Cuts them up.
it doesn't cut them because it's plastic, but they feel like it's glass and they let it go. Otherwise, just attach a car battery to it and just zap the crap out of them. That's my only other.
Torts with Bill Stan.
Yeah, we haven't introduced you yet, Tom. So just hold
So
on. there, buddy.
how has your week been? How was your legislation moving, and how are things going overall in the General Assembly?
Well, we're in the last 2 weeks of the Virginia General Assembly short session. The other thing I was going to say is that the thing I keep getting over and over again is is that really Larry the Cable Guy that just did our intro?
Oh, absolutely.
And people are like playing it for people. And they thought I was making I was doing the imitation of Larry the Cable Guy. And they say, man, your imitation of Larry the Cable Guy is really good. I'm like, that's him. So that is a really big change for us, and people are really enjoying it. And we've got 3 different versions. We're going to rotate them because they're all funny and different in their own way. So we were hearing a bunch of that. But after crossover, what we're seeing now is the buzzsaws are turned on. Buzzsaws are in the Democrat-controlled Senate committees where they're killing all the Republican bills that came over. Republicans in the House were getting a little offended. Your buddy there, Louise Lucas, didn't treat him too right in the Ed and Health Committee.
My buddy?
Your buddy Louise Lucas.
Did she get mad as a motherfucker? Some of the bills?
She yes.
Really?
And she said something to the effect of, see my trash can right over there? These are all going in the trash.
No way.
Yeah. And then wouldn't let, according to the House Republicans, wouldn't let them even present their bills or bring their witnesses.
So not about what's right, just about who was presenting.
So they felt like she had not given them the due process that they were entitled. I mean, their bills passed the House, some of them 100-0, which meant Democrats voted for them as well. And she had her buzzsaw on in her committee, and they believe rudely and unfairly were treated that way. And so then the House leadership sends over a letter to the Senate Democrats leadership and basically says, unless you get your act together, we don't need any amendments to the budget. We're shutting this place down on the 25th, 26th, and we don't care whether you get an amended budget or not. Right now, we passed a full budget last year. We come back this year just to make any tweaks or amendments we feel necessary. And certainly based on revenue.
2 years?
Yeah, it's a biennium budget, they call it. So this is just amending it, adding stuff, taking stuff out. And so it's not, reinventing the wheel, which is the original budget. So if we leave here with no budget, no amendments to the budget, we still have a 2-year budget plan.
Sure.
And we just have to follow that. House Republicans are having, consternation because Democrats on this side are not even entertaining the $1 billion that Governor Youngkin has proposed as tax relief. Usually when Democrats would propose spending plans or rebates or tax relief, if that ever happens, we would entertain them and try to work with them. They've just been, once again, the brick wall caucus, and they're not giving Youngkin anything that they can stand. I mean, if you're carrying a attorney general bill or a governor bill, 9 times out of 10, if they sniff and whiff it and know that it's a governor bill or attorney general bill, they'll kill it just because it has Miares or Youngkin attached or associated with it. I mean,
Can't give him a victory.
They even went so far in the budget. So we had budget day where the amendments were passed by the Senate. I voted against the budget amendments, stripping out money for the Lieutenant Governor Winsome Sears, stripping out money for the Attorney General Miares, which was for no other reason than spite. She had made a request for 3 staff positions. She runs across the whole state. She's got a big job, and they just ripped it out. Didn't care. And it's kind of a thumb in the eye kind of deal, and that's what they're doing to Youngkin with the budget provisions. That's what they're doing with Republican House members as they come over. They're this is their way, and as we've talked about, we're in the middle of a redistricting year where everybody's running a new district. 61 incumbents drawn in together. You've got a lot of the radical left coming in primarying a lot of our incumbents, our older incumbents up in Northern Virginia. You have Republicans against Republicans, Democrats against Democrats. Things are getting heated up in here, and feelings are starting to be hurt, and political maneuvers are beginning again. And so when you see something like that, I voted against the budget for 2 reasons. One, what they did to our lieutenant governor in terms of stripping out money for her office. And 2, they put in the Senate budget where taxpayer money will pay for abortions. And so I'm not voting for anything that ever comes close. And we can take out the amendment, vote against it, and then vote for the whole budget. No. In my mind, that goes in there and that goes across. I may have voted against it when we pulled it out of the block, but I'm voting no for the budget. There was no reason for us to do it. The House version of the budget has everything that Governor Youngkin wants. $1 billion in tax relief for all Virginians, lowering the income tax rates for businesses. A lot of initiatives that include but are not limited to, and I think we talked about this before, preventing China from buying our farms, banning TikTok from use on state machinery and phones and devices. And then you come over here and the Democrats are like, no. But they had to vote for the Chinese bill. That barely got out. They had to vote for the TikTok bill because I think they realized that they're going to look bad. But their arguments are still there. They don't want to vote for that stuff. They feel politically they have to at this point in time. So unless it's a vote where they are going to be embarrassed, like my internet pornography, keeping it from children by making the Pornhub sites put filters on. Ultimately, they complained, bitched, and moaned, but most of them had to vote for it. But still, some of them just can't help themselves. They're so liberal. They want to entertain the Chinese, and they want porn for everybody, no matter what your age.
Any luck on the bill that would affect Mecklenburg Electric and broadband with the railroads? Did you have any luck with that?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I carried that bill. I've rewritten it about 3 or 4 times, tried to help the railroad and address their concerns, rewrote it again just recently, and we put it on Chris Head's bill when it came over to the Senate. It sets up, I think, as close to being bulletproof, and that is to say, 1, it's fair, but 2, it can't be challenged. Anything can be challenged in court of law, but it won't be a successful challenge under the ground. That what this bill does is, in effect, a taking of the property of the railways. And I always remind everybody in the railroads, not only are they robber barons, Virginia gave them the land that the rails sit
Correct.
on, okay, under eminent domain. And now they're complaining that this is somehow a taking when we're trying to bring broadband to our rural areas. So,
Senator, I don't
that's
know
a
if
change,
the
but
listeners-
it's going through, man.
I don't know if the listeners understand how big of a bill that is and how important it is to get broadband all throughout rural Virginia.
Well, and-
that's a monumental task that you're taking on.
Virginia has thrown $1 billion towards that, but it has a 3-year clawback provision. You have to get it. We have to have the
Gotta get it
last
done.
mile of broadband in the Commonwealth of Virginia within now going on 2 years. And the problem is the holdup is the railroads won't let you cross your cable, and usually the cable hooks on the electrical wires and the electric poles. They won't let you do it unless you pay them like $20,000. They won't get back to you. They delay.
Because John
Things
Lee
can
was
take a year
telling
for
us
one
like
cross.
18 months to get a thing approved across.
How does this affect the politicians that have already taken credit for getting broadband to all these places?
It would demonstrate that perhaps they were a little premature, and hopefully they voted for my legislation.
I'm
so that they
responsible
could-
for, but that is a noble effort that you guys
Thanks.
are taking on, and plus I really appreciate John Lee. What a great job he does, and he's a great Virginian.
So a couple of the other things unrelated to bills that I have. My bills so far, I haven't lost one in the House yet. That can change, but I only carried 13 this year, got 9 across, and so far so good. We've seen the abortion bills, the rational abortion bills that would limit abortion to 20 weeks, 15 weeks. They're all dead. We have tried to address teacher shortages, but we cannot agree on how that is done. So we're all glammed up there. We've tried now on 2 occasions. The Republicans brought over a bill to stop us following California emissions standards and electrical car requirements, which would require us by 2030 to have at least 35% of all new vehicles to be electric only, which is just unsustainable. And then whatever California decides to do with their green energy process and programs, we have to follow along. We had a bill in the Senate that was killed. One came over from the House. I mean, we're just saying we're decoupling ourselves from California. We're still administering the federal guidelines for greenhouse gas emissions, et cetera. They killed that bill today in ag just a little while ago. I was in the committee. So here we go again. We're stuck, and we're stapled to the state of California, which doesn't have our best interest.
And I
at
just
heart.
this morning read articles about people from up in the northern part of the country, Massachusetts area, New Hampshire. Once they put a pen to paper for all the charges and things that it's costing them to charge their vehicles, it's more expensive to them than it is putting gas in their car by a pretty wide margin.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and they're even saying, please don't charge your electric vehicles because it's causing brownouts on the grid in California. And remember, we are the 3rd or 4th highest state in terms of importing electricity that we don't make enough to sustain ourselves. California is number 1. And you see what's happening with their grid problems they're having. We're number 4. Wow. Because we've shut down all our coal-fired plants that would generate electricity at a high rate. As you know, green renewable energy is a lot lower rate, a lot less in terms of intensity and amount of electricity that can be produced and consistently. And so here we go again. But we're stuck with California for one more year, and hopefully these elections that are coming up will do that. Cannabis,
Most of this stuff that to some people looks good on paper does not play over real well in reality.
everything, and Tom Garrett will probably talk to you about this in a couple minutes, everything is a 30,000-foot view. And everybody wants to put something on a brochure, but they really don't understand, you know, as a lawyer, we think about consequences and 2 or 3 steps down the road. If I do this, what happens next?
Oh, yeah, I've learned that.
Yeah, yes, yeah, there you go. And so a lot of people say, oh, that's a great bill, but they don't understand what it's going to do or the effect it will have implementing it. One of those is cannabis. I mean, the 330-page bill that came out, we've legalized amounts of marijuana. We've legalized, you can grow marijuana in your backyard, but it can't be seen by the public. You got to put your name around it on a tag, but you can't buy the seeds to grow the marijuana. That's illegal. You can't have more than 3 plants. But then we have medical cannabis, but at the same time, we have not figured out the public marketplace for cannabis. And I'm sure Tom Garrett will talk about that as well. He's got some ideas about that. He was a certain way when he was in Congress, so that may be one of our issues. But we can't. So now we have legalization of marijuana, but there's no commercial vehicle in which to.
And we've
to
talked
sell.
about this.
Shep was telling me on the way from Colonial Heights to here that some friends of his had just been in Vegas recently, first time in a couple of years, and they said the biggest difference was it was borderline unbearable to walk up and down the strip in Vegas because all the marijuana.
Yeah, just horrible odor. I mean, it was just that was overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, you see it around here. I smelled it walking around the corner. There was a guy down here puffing one. He didn't seem to give a crap. Nobody gave a crap. It's amazing to me, and I've said this before, we are in Virginia a tobacco-rich region. In the agricultural beginnings of Virginia, tobacco was king. Now, government says tobacco is bad. You can't grow it. You can't smoke it. But let's smoke some weed, man. And let's do it any way you want. And so here we go, with all of that. We're just spinning in circles. We passed a god-awful giant bill with so many tentacles. We have no ability whatsoever in controlling this monster, and the monster's going to control us.
But wait till it gets down to the local level with all of those options, and if it's going to be referendum or not, it is going to be a nightmare.
Well, and now I was seeing reports where we're really seeing a spiking. There are THC, which is of course the active
drug.
element of marijuana, THC infused sport drinks, and kids are ODing on them. Kids are having overdoses on them. I mean, we're not controlling the marketplace, and this is again, it kind of reminds me of skill games, Hermie. I mean, so we refuse to control the marketplace and put reasonable safeguards and railing in to make sure that we could control and regulate and keep it out of the hands of people that don't need to have it. We didn't do it with skill games. What you saw is a proliferation of illegal gaming all over the place. We're not doing it with marijuana. So guess who's making all the tax-free profit right now?
All the illegal games.
Johnny the pot dealer. And Johnny the pot dealer is also bringing in edibles that look like candy, where kids are ODing on them. And some of these vape shops and THC or cannabis shops that are not supposed to be running are selling this product, like Delta 8 on High Street in Portsmouth. You've heard that too, haven't you, Hermie?
Yeah.
And at Louide's shop, and they're unabated. So the problem is you let that element in, and it grows.
Can't get rid of it.
Just like the casinos want that monopoly, just like when you don't regulate and all the illegals proliferate, and then when the government sweeps in and tries to correct everything, well, it's too damn late. The thing is too big. It's grown too large in its size.
I want to bring on our guest, but I have one other question.
Sure.
We talked a little bit last week about the drama circulating around the casino potentially in Petersburg, and the one that Richmond voters turned down, and then Petersburg tried to get it. Last time we talked, there was some conversation about that vote and Rosie's, how they were affected and all that. Where did all that end up?
In terms of what do you mean?
Well, then they vote for Petersburg to have a referendum. Did that bill still live, or
the bill is still alive? It's coming in front of Commerce and Labor. No. It's coming in front of a committee tomorrow, which will probably pass it out. Then it has its real test in the Senate Finance Committee, which killed Joe Morrissey's bill. Senator Joe Morrissey had a bill, killed it by one vote. Kim Taylor's bill. Kim Taylor is a Republican who won in Petersburg, was really instrumental in trying to give us the majority in the House of Delegates. And here we are with her bill coming over. Tom Garrett is having some drink, some refreshment, non-alcoholic, of course, and some spinach. So any sound you're hearing right now is him.
I'm glad he's not in the weight loss challenge.
Anyway, no, he's drinking seltzer and eating spinach leaves. So where you've got is this bill when it comes over. The question for Republicans on the Finance Committee and the question for Republicans on the floor is one, look, Richmond said no. Richmond voters said we don't want a casino. Who wants a casino back in Richmond? Mayor LeVar Stoney, who is probably going to be a gubernatorial candidate in a couple of years. Mayor LeVar Stoney was the Secretary of the Commonwealth. Nice guy, but would, cut your legs out if you're from underneath you if you're a Republican.
Slash your tires.
Slash your tires for real. We can talk about that too, Tom Garrett. And if you're going to vote down Kim Taylor's bill, you're voting basically against Kim Taylor and lessening her chances of being reelected. So you're basically going to give back the Democrats control of the House. So for my benefit, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to vote for this thing only because it's going to help a Republican in Petersburg, in an area that is a challenging district for a Republican to win in.
To try to stay.
But if she brings this to Petersburg, they're going to reelect her. And then to keep LeVar Stoney out, I'm not going to give him a win. He had his shot. They lost, and that's it. So that's going to be this upcoming week as we hurtle towards the close of the 2023 Virginia General Assembly session. So
one other question.
Sure.
Where are we at on daylight saving times?
That's dead. That's dead. So the United States Congress had, or at least the Senate had by acclamation, voted to end that. Actually, they were going to keep daylight savings time. Nobody likes standard time anymore because it gets too dark in the winter, too early. But we tried legislation, Richard Stewart did, to try to make us follow what that proclamation from the Senate was and just wait on the federal government. That got shot down. So we're just kind of waiting for the federal government. They're the ones that are going to have to make this switch. You know, and I always thought that daylight savings time was created back in the 1800s or something, in 1700s, so we could, so farmers could farm longer.
For the farmers, yeah.
It was World War II. World War II. One of those. So, the federal government put it in place, strangely enough, not too long ago. So being that it's not been here forever, it shouldn't stay here forever. I hope we get rid of it as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a break right now because we have a very, very, very special guest coming on.
Shep got to do Manscaped?
Shep may have to do Manscaped when we get back. Yeah, I think this is a Manscaped week.
I can't wait.
But we're going to come right back
Valentine's.
after these messages. Oh, there you go. Maybe
yeah.
I did not get a Valentine script, so maybe we're missing that one. But we're going to come back after these messages, and we're going to talk to former Congressman Tom Garrett, former state senator Tom Garrett.
Wow.
Permanent lifetime Bill Stanley best friend, and hopefully future House of Delegate member in Southside, Virginia. So stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back.
Hi, folks. This is Hermie Sadler. Thanks for listening to our all-new podcast, Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator. I hope you are enjoying the show as much as Senator Stanley and I enjoy bringing it to you. Whether you're a family traveling together or a truck driver hauling freight up and down the highway, I hope you will take the time to visit one of our Sadler Travel Plaza locations in Virginia and North Carolina. Sadler Travel Plaza locations are licensed dealer locations for Pilot Travel Centers, and we also carry Shell Motiva petroleum products for our four-wheel friends. We pride ourselves on providing one-stop shopping for service, food, and entertainment. Our food options include Five Guys Burgers and Fries, Quiznos, Dairy Queen, Hermie Sadler's Faux Show Bar and Grill, Victory Lane Restaurant, Hunt Brothers Pizza, Dunkin' Donuts, and much, much more. Our locations include Sadler Travel Plaza in South Hill, located off I-85 at exit 12. The Sadler Travel Plaza of Emporia, which is conveniently located on exit 11B off I-95, and Sadler Travel Plaza on Highway 58 in Suffolk. We also have our North Carolina location, Sadler Travel Plaza in Dunn, North Carolina, that's exit 75 off I-95. We appreciate all of our customers, and Bill and I appreciate you listening to Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler and the Senator, powered by Pace-O-Matic.
Hey, this is Bill Stanley, Hermie Sadler's sidekick on this podcast. When I'm not in Richmond at the Capitol or doing this podcast, my real job for the past 27 years is as a trial attorney with the Stanley Law Group. Here at the Stanley Law Group, we represent our clients in every courthouse in the Commonwealth. No problem is too small for us to solve. No case is too big for us to win. Whether it's criminal charges, traffic offenses, civil disputes, litigation matters of any sort, we handle it all. We make sure that we treat every client like family because they are to us. Your problem is our problem. Your success is our success because we hate to lose more than we love to win. And believe me, we win a lot. Don't believe me? Go ask Hermie. I'm his favorite lawyer, and he hates lawyers. So give us a call at 540-721-6028 and let us help you. Or visit our website at www.vastanleylawgroup.com. That's www.vastanleylawgroup.com. At the Stanley Law Group, we'll make sure we're the lawyers that you swear by and not at. And we're back. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, leaning right.
And I'm Hermie Sadler, turning left, leaning right and turning left with Sadler and the Senator.
That was a great opening, but now we're gonna get into the meat of the matter. Speaking of meat, either you listened to Shep Moss's Manscaped commercial, or you didn't. We don't know whether it's our week or not.
The timing could not be more perfect.
Don't you think? Why?
For Shep,
Yeah.
to not only talk about, but do it in the form of manscaping, because
It's Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day, and our listening audience may not be aware of this, but Shep Moss has a long lost distant cousin named Randy.
Randy Moss, the wide receiver,
Used to
for
play in the
Vikings
NFL.
and
Yes.
the Patriots.
And if you remember those Monday night pregame shows when they said they show these highlights of Randy making these great plays, and otherwise they say, "You got mossed." Well, tonight in South Hill, Virginia, that's what's going to happen to Shep's wife, Terry.
I'm already smiling about it.
Yeah.
She going to get mossed.
I think it's going to be an incomplete pass, but that's what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking that
A false
Manscaped.
start.
And backfield in
5-yard
motion.
penalty.
Oh, I hope it's some backfield in motion.
You going to send the tight end out wide? Oh, geez. So, this is really, heating up here. You better deliver on Valentine's Day.
I have no choice.
All right. And you've manscaped?
I have to prove that I have one thing in common with Randy.
And you've manscaped?
Oh, after 4.0 platinum, baby.
There you go. And
Oh, yeah.
and manscaped.com. Go to manscaped.com. Get 20% off.
And free shipping.
Yeah, and free shipping.
Let's go ahead.
Off
Promo
your order.
code.
Promo code MOST.
SADLER. Sadler.
If you put in promo code Sadler, you get 20% off and free shipping. We thank you, Manscaped, for always sponsoring us. You're a great partner, and you're really helping out old Sheppy there with his abilities.
You got mossed.
Keeps me on the show.
I can't wait to call Terry tomorrow.
Oh,
You
you
got
got to call her
mossed.
tonight.
You ought to
She
take,
ain't going to be able to talk tomorrow.
you ought to take your little shaggy beard thing there and cut it in the shape of a heart.
It is no way she'll be able to talk tomorrow.
Okay. Anyway, so we got a great guest, ladies and gentlemen. One of my friends, we talked about it earlier, but a guy I met in the Senate my second year, came in as a part of the tidal wave of Republican control in the Virginia State Senate. Hadn't happened in a while. Came in with Bryce Reeves, who, if you're listening to this podcast, you got to listen to. Bill Carrico. We were the majority for a good long while, and we had one of the greatest thinkers and an incredible person who could argue his bill or his point or argue against the Democrats' point, and was not afraid to do it. Even to the point when he was making a very good argument about making sure kids were not exposed to explicit materials in libraries, that he started reading one of the books on the floor of the Senate, and they had to clear all the young Senate pages out of the chamber because it was pretty explicit. But I thought it really made the point. Ladies and gentlemen, a man who wore the cloth of the United States for the United States Army, a state senator, a congressman, now running for the House of Delegates. I mean, that's going backwards, but we usually have delegates that run for the Senate, not senators that run for the House of Delegates. But I hope he wins, man, because they need him over there. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Tom Garrett. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You sure about that?
I just want to I just want to point out that is the least vocal I've been for 35 minutes awake in my entire adult life. So
I was sitting here listeting to us talk.
I can't believe you stayed here.
oh my gosh.
Well,
You had a chance to leave.
luckily he had the spinach that he was gnawing on like a little squirrel over there. And
I'm trying to get invited to this weight loss challenge and you guys won't have it.
well, you can join.
You're cheating already compared to us.
Just
Eating
say well, I'll go get on that scale after the show tonight and we'll
All right, you want to add to it? I mean, it's a $500 buy-in though. It's pretty stout.
well, you're an attorney. Can I use campaign money for that?
Well, actually, we had a bill that would have prevented that.
In fact,
now
if
you still
I can
can.
just get Hermie to throw me about 10% of that Phil Vassar fundraiser at SadlerForVirginia.com,
There you go.
I'm in. But
Okay. Well, we'll see if we can arrange that. In the meantime, welcome, Tom. It's been a while. You and I haven't seen each other for a while. We've talked on the phone. You've got quite a story, quite an adventure that you've lived and are living at this very point. And he and I were talking on the phone one time. I was coming back from a court case, and we talked for about an hour and a half. And I said, "Man, you got to get on the podcast. You got to tell this story."
I can't imagine what that cost you, Tom. Damn.
It was
4 IQ points.
It was something. But Tom, tell us about how you got into politics, how this all started. It's a long story, but I want to hear all of it, and tell our listeners exactly that journey, the beginning of that journey.
How far back you want to go? So I was born to privilege, and I say that quite intentionally in the political climate that we're in. But my privilege was having a mom who thought I could do anything, and a father who would jerk a knot in my rear end if I didn't try. And I mean, truly wonderful parents. And Dad, we ate in the dining room every Sunday evening. And because mom was terrified that I wouldn't know what fork to use if I ever got invited to eat somewhere fancy. But Dad was he would hold the Socratic sort of discussion, right? He never told us what to think. He would ask questions and let us arrive at conclusions, which I think, and I'm really good at digression and ADHD. I do that well as well.
You do.
But I think that's something that's sadly missing in society today.
Yeah, my kids, we eat every dinner with the family every night.
That's awesome. And so, it
makes a difference.
I think it really does. But that was the beginning. And then the sort of scripture that Dad pounded on was the parable of the talents. If you've been given something, you're supposed to try. You're not guaranteed success, which is okay. We can't guarantee outcomes in a world populated by fallen beings, to do something with it. And so that to me was politics, right? That I had the ability to do things relatively well, some things. And
you served our country in the Army first.
Yeah, which was awesome, right? I mean,
what did you do there?
So I was a fire supporter. I think my military claim to fame, aside from serving in Operation Joint Endeavor, was that I was the fire support officer for Lieutenant Colonel David Perkins, who later did the Thunder Run into Baghdad on the second invasion. He was like a 2-star or 3-star general and led that. But I knew when I was, a first lieutenant and he was a 05 lieutenant colonel, I'm like, this guy's good. And have subsequently been in the company of some really neat people. And I always like hanging out with dynamic people. So that's why, Shep, that's why I'm here tonight, because I knew you were going to be
Shep
here.
Moss.
Shep Moss.
Shep Moss.
But seriously, and it's just a series of blessings. But so that's sort of how I got into it. Like, okay, where's an arena where I can do stuff that I enjoy, where I can make a dent, and not in a NASCAR way, but in a good way, leave a mark.
I took care enough of that for all of us.
Usually driving that pink, what is it, Semp race car with the baby doll.
Zaf Creation.
Zaf,
what was that all about? He showed me a picture. You had a pink race car.
I did.
He was holding a baby too.
Guess what?
What?
The check was green.
The car was pink.
Yeah. I said, if y'all want me to ride around here in a pink car and hold baby dolls, I certainly will.
How'd you do in that car?
It was like I'm trying to think. It branched off of, I had Toys R Us back when Warren Kornblum was in charge of marketing at Toys R Us, who's still a good friend of mine. And then Zaf Creation was a line that was sold in Toys R Us as kind of a branch off deal through Toys R Us. And it was maybe 5 or 8 races, did great. They sent for about 2 Christmases. Santa Claus was taken care of. Right. They just send me a
baby dolls for everyone.
Truckload full of baby dolls, and my kids still have them. So,
are you one of the few NASCAR drivers to drive a pink car?
I did it for Zaf Creation a couple times, and then I remember I did a couple races later in my career during breast cancer awareness events for Susan G. Komen. I ran pink cars a couple times. So sometimes I did it to make money. Sometimes I did it to provide awareness for breast cancer. And by the way, you got a pink tie on, so I think
I
that's
do.
cool
It's from
too.
the Tommy Norman collection.
Real
Valentine's
men
Day.
wear pink.
Yeah, this is the only I wear it once a year. I've had this tie since I got here. You can tell it's out of style. It's like bigger than.
Did you get that suit from JCPenney?
I did actually. This is a full Tommy Norman outfit. It's from the boys' Husky department in JCPenney with the Tommy Norman.
Get out here with your JCPenney.
They're talking about Hermie driving a pink race car. I can remember back in the wrestling days, some of those guys like John Layfield would say, "Look, Hermie, look, you pay me X amount of dollars tonight, and they can kick my ass all around this arena.
Why
I
are you
don't
cussing
care."
so much
Yeah,
today?
he is.
Well, I'm just
Got him a
macho.
Got him a little victory this week. Now he wants to.
I'm in a
He's
great
so
mood.
macho.
I'm peacocking a little bit.
Yeah, that's macho Shep.
I understand if one here or there, but like you're being extra today. I don't know why.
I mean, are you taking eugenics?
I've got to be extra tonight. I'm getting practice.
Are you taking eugenics like Doug Flutie? and she'll like it too.
Maybe.
Is that it's important?
You go down on a pontoon tonight? What are we talking about?
Hey, welcome to the show there,
We
Tom.
could sit on the pontoon at the dock. We don't even have to go out.
You're not going to crank the motor up, put it on like
The hell with it.
Don't you think the neighbors, it's like
There are no neighbors.
they think that maybe a dog's
Oh,
being
he's-
harmed
look,
outside and they call the cops?
This man's got his own exclusive island out there at Lake Gaston. He's
Exclusive.
Really?
He's heavy. He's heavy.
He's heavy. All right. Well, see, Tom brought up the
We
big
had a
car because
guest.
he showed me the car, picture of the car, and he wanted to talk about it. So that's how it came up. So Tom, this is what happens. You serve your country in the military. You go get a law degree. You become a prosecutor,
Yeah.
and lead us on from there.
Well, the fun story on the prosecutor thing is that and Hermie earlier said that he doesn't like to think about his opponents. He likes to work his own race. And I was running against an incumbent in that race. And
Commonwealth Attorney of Louisa.
yeah, that's right. It's the cultural center of the universe.
Indeed.
But I was running against an incumbent, and I went to the Relay for Life because for a couple of years, Louisa, Virginia was like per capita the number one Relay for Life donor county in America. And so it was May, and the general was in November. I was the Republican committee chair, and my opponent was the Democrat committee chair, but he ran as an independent. So we started by saying, well, I'm the Republican committee chair, so I probably ought to run as one. And he's the Democrat committee chair, so he's not running as a Democrat. Y'all figure out who's telling you the truth. And that was a good start. But he walked past me at Relay for Life. I was handing out water bottles in the corner, and he said, I understand you're running against me. And I said, I prefer to believe I'm running for something rather than against somebody. And he said, well, good luck with that. And I thought, oh, it's on now.
Yeah, challenge accepted.
But
And you won. You won.
You got a long rest of your story to tell, but to me, I really and truly feel that way because obviously I'm going to be heading towards a convention with Emily Brewer, who is a sitting House of Delegates member, and every once in a while I'll get brought up. She's already here. She's in the House of Delegates. She's in has the Richmond people in her corner, all that, and I'm like, I don't pay attention to any of that. I don't pay attention to politicians endorsing her and what goes on. I focus on what I think I have to do to get my name out there. So when you first started running races, it's easy to say, but is it easy to do? And that is stay focused on your race.
Well, you have to if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
And you know a lot more about racing than I do, but I think you can't worry about what somebody in another car is doing. You got to worry about what's going on in yours.
Yeah.
That said, Mark Peake's in the state Senate now, and I think the world of him. I love him, and I think he does a great job as a senator. I ran against him for state Senate back in 2011, and I couldn't stand him. And I'll say this, obviously, a lot of thousands and thousands of people listen to this podcast because they want to know where Shep is with his manscaping.
Yeah.
But But yeah, I think the world of Mark. But when you're running against somebody, you almost kind of have to find a way to not like them. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a huge difference between not liking who you're running against because you want to win the race,
right?
And doing things that are underhanded or unethical or what have you. By the way, I told Bill on break, your signs would get stolen less if you'd stop autographing them, Hermie.
Yeah.
You gotta,
well, my signs are worth $10, but if I autograph them, that makes them worth $2. So I autograph them in the hopes that people will not pick them up.
But if you get Elliot to autograph them, well, never mind.
Never mind.
Yeah, sore subject. So yeah.
By the way, he's got the worst handwriting
in that
of
job,
anybody I've ever seen.
And that job, Commonwealth's attorney, was probably, with the exception of being deployed in the military, which was amazing, was probably the best job that I ever had as far as job satisfaction.
How long did you serve as Commonwealth's attorney?
I was elected, the elected for 4 years, and I served in the office for about 6. I had interned in Henrico County back when they used to elect Republicans when I was in law school.
Right.
With John Garrett, who later became a judge, and God rest his soul, died prematurely. Mm-hmm. But wonderful guy, and no relation, although I would claim him if he were. He was remarkable. But yeah, great job because you get vested with the executive authority to look at a case, and Bill, you know this as an attorney, where maybe your defendant or your client is actually guilty, but there's some mitigating factor that's so ridiculous that they shouldn't have been charged, right? And the Commonwealth it's a story in Louisa. There was a fella who shot a fella stone dead with a bolt-action .22 rifle. But am I getting ahead of myself? This woman had been in an abusive relationship, and her spouse was, I guess, an addict of some sort, and she moved in with her brother who was handicapped, and So the disgruntled spouse figured out where she was and came over there and started beating on her. And the handicapped brother said, "Stop beating on my sister." And the guy said, "You're next." And he made his way very deliberately and slowly to the closet where he retrieved a .22 caliber bolt-action rifle and shot one time and put it through the guy's sternum and dropped him where he stood. And the sheriff's office called me and said, "Here are the facts. What do we charge him with?" And I said, "Well, run him by me again." And they ran him by me again. And I said, "If you can find anything in the Code of Virginia about being a good shot, you should charge him with that." But that was his that was his law enforcement interaction. And because again, I mean, and again, as I said, I digress. Well, we live in a world where in some localities that guy's at least going to get taken in front of a grand jury.
Oh yeah.
But as the prosecutor, you can look at that and go, yeah, no.
Well, and the factor is that he used a firearm, and that's it.
Well,
and in those counties that are against firearms in public places, that they think somehow when they stick a sticker on the door that says no firearms allowed, that's going to stop the robber from coming in and saying, "Oh, I can't do this place. I've got a gun. I need to go back to my car."
I'm waiting for somebody to cite the case where a gun-free zone stopped a shooting, right? I mean, seriously, I'd love to hear it, because if you're willing to take a human life, then probably you're not concerned with the possession of an illegal
or
firearm.
the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia or the United States.
I'm not saying, just saying.
So you didn't even prosecute that guy?
No, we didn't even. He never left the house. He didn't even get in the sheriff's office or car and go to the office.
And that's an awesome responsibility, but
it was a great job
too.
Well, look, I mean, I'll tell the story today. I mean, and so that was a wonderful job as far as job satisfaction, because you were the filter, right? Mm-hmm. And then we had another case where we had an analogous fact pattern with a young man who was African American to one that was with a young man who was Caucasian from a very prominent background. And when the white kid got charged, a lot of people, including the African American sheriff, who I love, came to me and said, he's from a great family, good people, blah, 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 blah. And there weren't many people doing that for the black kid. What I said to my then deputy is, if we don't treat him the same, then we shouldn't have this job, right?
Right.
And ultimately, we don't get to sentence the judge sentences, but when everything was said and done, I think their sentences were within like a month of being equal. And I was at the food line in the town of Louisa, and somebody from the African-American community came up to me and said, "We were watching you," which was a little creepy. But I'm like, "I'm sorry." And he said, no, we were watching how these cases played out. Thank you. And that, like, how do you, meanwhile, now fast forward.
Justice is blind, but it also equals.
Justice that isn't blind isn't justice, that's right? But so fast forward to 2017, and I represent Charlottesville, and all of a sudden I'm a white supremacist. But 2 years prior, I was the guy that got the Barbara John's holiday.
Correct.
Right.
Now that's when you're in Congress. You're really rolling forward here. But so at some point in time, because look, you're the Commonwealth's attorney. You're, as we all say, all the power in any county begins at the courthouse. But at some point, you decide for yourself, you know what? I'm not satisfied. I want to run for state senate. Walk us through that too.
Well, we're going to get into a lot of things here. I wrote down, I have like 7 words of notes in front of me. 4 years, 8 months, and 21 days. 4 years, 8 months, and 21 days ago, I was really drunk. I mean, really drunk. And I know that because that's the last day of my life that I've had a drink. But there was this thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you, man. That's God, man.
Yeah.
Congratulate God, because Tom couldn't do it. Like, Tom tried. Tom had all kinds of outlandish schemes and controlling his drink. I was like 20, and my father was very conservative, but relatively liberal as a parent, because his attitude was similar to mine, and that is, if your kids can't talk about anything with you, they'll talk about anything with somebody who doesn't love them. So I'm like 20, and my dad said, "Son, there's 2 types of people in this world, those who control alcohol and those who are controlled by it. And I think you might be the latter." Right now I was 20, so I knew everything. So I'm like, whatever, old man. And then I was succeeding. And so, like, my favorite AAism, is alcoholism is when you hear a voice constantly lying to you, and sobriety is when you realize it was your own damn voice. And so you ask why I, ran for state senate. There was this hole in me. I could never be successful. I mean, I couldn't ever in my own mind be good enough. I couldn't be. I was never truly happy for very long.
But look how much that you had accomplished.
No, but you don't see it.
Right.
I mean, you don't see it. So at its pinnacle, or at its rock bottom, to use a phrase, I was like, not hyperbolically, really contemplating suicide. And then I would beat myself up with, "Well, you're a sissy because you didn't do it." And that because I couldn't. So what it was, right? I was raised by parents.
This was while you were almost attorney thinking about running for Senate, or was that
dude, it was my adult life.
Really?
I mean, there were ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys, but you know, and I don't want to compare myself to geniuses, but like Robin Williams, Whitney Houston, Chris Cornell, Anthony Bourdain, these are people who are at the absolute pinnacle of their business
and miserable,
and they got a hole in their soul and substance abuse. So that's it. Now, I was raised in the church, right? I've always believed in God, but sometimes you got to be smart to be stupid. So I studied up on like Jefferson and deism, and I'd convinced myself that God was this clockmaker, that he made everything, and that he sat back and sort of watched with his arms folded as the pendulum swung back and forth. And so the famous Garrettism was, God's not going to cut my grass, which he won't. However, he has endowed me with the eyes to see that it needs to be cut and the ability to start the mower. And the other thing was that there was one 4-letter word that would get me in real trouble growing up, but it started with C and it ended with T, and it's not the one you're thinking of. It was can't. You can't say can't.
I was going to say cost.
Yeah, Dad, I can't would get met with, oh, yes, you can. Now how? Right? Which is a good parent, right? But so because I'm succeeding, I'm lying to myself saying I don't have a problem. Because look, I keep succeeding. And then I'd go, William Faulkner and Ulysses Grant and all these people who did amazing things. Yeah, Ernest Hemingway. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to be dead, right? So it was I had to say the C word. I had to say I can't do it. Dear God, I can't do it. Please help me. And but yeah, the reason I ran for higher office is because I had to run for higher office because what I'd done, led soldiers on foreign soil during a deployment, or done, been the Commonwealth's attorney in the county where I grew up, or served in the Virginia Senate and passed some pretty neat legislation. Yeah. None of that.
None of it mattered.
So I had to, not to me.
Right.
And people would tell me I was awesome and all blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you drunken bastard missed your daughter's Saturday night school play last week. Or whatever, right? Because they do 3 plays now. They do Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday matinee, and Daddy would go on Friday, and then Saturday was a night that he didn't have to go because he'd already been, and everybody else was out of the house, so he could drink too much. Because when I said I wasn't running for re-election, Jim Jordan came up to me on the floor of the U.S. Congress and said, "Garrett, you can't be an alcoholic. I've never seen you drunk." I said, "You're not supposed to." Like this is how I got here.
So you run for Senate. I mean, let's stay. You are not happy, but obviously wanting to achieve. You're a high level achiever. I mean, it's not like you took the job lightly, nor the campaign lightly, and that was a very important year when you ran.
Well, that was right. We'd tell the Bryce Reeves story in a minute because it's a better story than mine. But yeah, on the campaign trail now. TomForDelegate.com. Can I do that?
Yeah.
TomForDelegate.com.
Sure you can.
Yeah, Phil Vassar will not be doing a benefit concert for me.
Maybe party time, but not Phil Vassar.
You can get Shep out there.
Shep with stacks of wax might. You know what? You might find out that that's the real draw.
Yeah. Look at him.
Yeah, smiling.
He's had a good week.
I've had a good week.
Yeah.
You know what? My week got better when I met Shep. So
I'm glad to hear
See?
that.
So no, but in the campaign now, I tell look, I mean, and somebody said, well, you got to be humble, and I'm like, everybody wants humiliated, but nobody wants to be humiliated. I looked at the camera when nobody was accusing me of being an alcoholic and said, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not right. I've already been humble, but
let's lead up to that.
I mean, when we were in the Senate, I mean,
you ran. It was an
the
upset
Virginia
win.
Society for Human Life.
Who'd you run against?
I don't even. It's
to do their own pest company.
No, well, the Democrat was Burt Dodson, and but the real race was Mark Peake, Brian Rohde, myself, Claudia Tucker, who I love. Mark Peake, who I speak. I mean,
he's great.
Yeah, he's awesome. But when you're running against these people, you have to find a way to go, oh, I don't like that guy, because you want to run as hard as you can.
When you were running, did you have a comms director?
No,
you didn't. Okay,
not like Bryce Reeves does.
I've met some comm directors, and I was just
Bryce Reeves has a comms director.
Well, you know me, Bill Stanley. I mean, I was actually talking to my campaign guy in the car ride on the way up here, and literally I said, "Hey, have you ever tried to argue with me when I'd already made up my mind?" He's like, "Yes." I said, "Why are we still talking?"
Well, you haven't changed that much, but so you win, you get into the Senate.
Yeah, but so yeah, Gun Owners of America, VCDL, NRA, Virginia Society for Human Life, NFIB, Virginia Chamber of Commerce named us Freshman Member of the Year. Mm-hmm. Ranked at or the top of the Senate by all these organizations, but still getting
like the biggest conservative we had.
Can I tell? Well, yeah, I'm going to tell the Carrico story because this is like
You were doing great things, though. I mean, you were putting in impactful bills. You were trying to legalize fireworks at one point.
If I get back, we're going to try to legalize fireworks again, and we're going to sell them all at Emporia in Emporia, Virginia.
There you go.
Sadler Travel Plaza.
But in your mind, you were a failure.
Oh, dude! I mean,
what I'm
I was
hearing.
pathetic. Oh, it's a mental illness, right? I mean, and so why am I doing this? Why am I so open about this? Well, so God's got me here to do something, but He didn't tap me on the shoulder, whisper at me, and tell me exactly what it was. My job is to do whatever I think is the best thing to do in the moment, because make that next right decision, do the next right thing. But if me running for office and talking about the fact that I've had a gun pointed at my head by me because I was miserable because I couldn't get in front of alcohol without asking for help from people and God. If that helps other people, and that's what God's got me here doing, I'm in. I'm all in, because to be used by God, and I got a story that I'd love to tell where that light started to come on for me while I was still drinking. But
we got plenty of time.
Yeah, it was all any accolade I could win. You were with me, right? I mean, we all got rated by like American Conservative Union, and you were probably number one year, and I was number. But in 5 years, every conservative organization there is rated me probably at least 1 year.
Yeah, and Democrats feared you, and Democrats
but they
hated
liked
when
me
you,
too,
and they liked you too. But they feared when you stood up. They feared when you fought a bill. They feared when you would comment on their bills. I mean, it was a fear, and he shot to the top very quickly in the state Senate, and we were over there in the Raucous Caucus in the corner. We had fun, but he was very serious at the same time. And I'm telling you, I couldn't tell a bit that he wasn't the happiest guy in the world.
Oh, dude, you've seen me drunk though.
Yeah. You've seen me drunk.
Well, I wasn't even going to go there.
Let's be honest. I mean, we're talking 13, 14, 15 years ago.
It just irritates me though, because too soon old, too late wise, you know? Yeah. I mean, like I didn't, so I see people who are early in their sobriety and I'm happy for them, but I get a little jealous when they're 29. You know, but you know what? We shall not regret.
We were younger then. I mean,
to close the door.
But we worked hard. I mean, that's kind of the culture. It was the culture around here. I think it's not so much anymore. But you know, you'd work real hard, work a 14-hour day, go down to the tobacco company and have some dinner and have a couple pops and sit there and talk to the owner until you look up and it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
I still like going out and talking to the people until 1 o'clock in the morning. I just volunteer to be designated driver. I mean, I asked a friend, I don't want to talk specifically about what 12-step program I use, because that 12-step program doesn't want me to talk about it. Mm-hmm. But I asked a friend early in sobriety, I said, what am I supposed to do for fun? And he said, all the same stuff you used to do when you drank, but don't drink. And I thought that was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. Now, one joy of mine is catching sharks off the beach down in Southwest Florida. I got some spots, and I used to do that, or I used to try to do that when I was drinking, and I never caught anything. And it's a true story. But one of my coolers was a lot lighter at the end of the day. And now I don't drink, and I catch fish. Like, I mean, I stopped catching blacktips off the beach in Sanibel when my arms are tired. That's when I stop. Yeah. And it's awesome when you get somebody who doesn't respect the fact that you're fishing, who jumps back and forth across your line, and you pull about a 4-foot shark right past them. Is that a shark? I'm like, yeah, it was right where you are. You got fishing space after that. Yeah.
But we never could tell. I mean, you couldn't tell. He didn't come in drunk. He didn't come in.
Oh no, I never drank during the day, and I didn't drink every day. But 2 to 4 nights a week, I would get good and drunk. And then you go out and you say, this is me and this is what I believe, and it's all true, except you were hammered the night before and you know it, even if they don't.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell that story. Some people apparently could tell, because when I announced my campaign. So Bill Carrico's on your show. We were talking off air about whether he's been a teetotaler his whole life. We think yes.
Yes.
And
what time you say it?
He swore one time.
Oh, he swore
didn't drink.
one time. That's right. He swore.
He used foul language, and then he used it on the podcast.
Yeah. So when I said I wasn't running again, because there was a story in Politico that said Congressman, wife treat staff like servants, and I was incensed because that was not true. But I was a drunk, so I came out the Monday after that story ran on Friday and said, all that's bullshit. But I am an alcoholic and I'm not running again.
Yeah,
and
now
everybody
went, You're jumping ahead.
Okay. So,
talk about the Senate.
The story,
because we have great stories about you going to Congress too.
Well, the Senate, so what I've always taken pride in is, which is why the headline of that story irritated me so much, is treating people in a manner such that I'd want to be treated. And so when I said I'm an alcoholic, 2 of the first 3 phone calls I got were Dick Sasselaw and Janet Howell. and I vote like Dick Saslaw 10% of the time and Janet Howell like 2% of the time, but they cared about me because, and that's the way that government should be done.
Well, in
I care about
the
them.
Senate 40, I mean, we all like and respect each other. I mean, the only guy that I never got along with or never even got to talk to was Mark Herring, who became Attorney General. He just never talked to anybody unless they were Democrats. But
now, one of the many things that my mama told me when I was growing up is that if I didn't have anything nice to say, I should truncate my comments.
I understand. So we get to the point. He is probably the shining star in the Conservative Party, conservative Republicans. He's a part of the lead. He speaks his mind. He's really out there out front. He's willing to take the slings and arrows from the Democrats and from the Republicans. He's willing to call out Republicans when they're not staying true to the conservative values. That caused some moments in our caucus when Tom would challenge leadership, but we never ever thought, and we'd go out to a bar or go to dinner and never thought anything of it. And Tom all of a sudden decides the Senate wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Well, what it was Tom wasn't good enough, like truly. And somebody said to me the other day, well, isn't this beneath you running for the House? And I'm like, the longest continually elected Democratic legislative body on the planet Earth is probably above me, but I'd like the opportunity to serve. It was about making as big a dent as I could, right? So that maybe I don't feel like I'm freaking hollow inside. And again, that was a void. I knew there was a God. I didn't ever ask him for anything. Ye have not because ye ask not. Now, he won't answer your prayers the way you want him to, right? There'll be a Venn diagram of what you want and what God knows you need.
Kamala Harris loves Venn diagram.
And the yellow school buses.
Electric yellow school.
I don't know yellow school bus. And every once in a while, God's what you need will overlap with Tom's what you want. Yeah. But when I let go, when I just go, okay, there's just a bunch of stuff I can't do anything about, and then get to that acceptance, everything gets easier. So. I mean,
you decided to run for Congress, and in fact, Robert Hurd, who was in the 5th District, he had run for Congress, so I took over his seat, ran and won the one in the 19th Senate District, ran again in the 20th Senate District. We were in the Senate together, 6 years? 5 years? 5 years. And Tom, all of a sudden, Robert Hurt announces that he's retiring. He's had enough. And so Washington, D.C. starts calling around trying to get somebody else, and they're trying to get me to run. I mean, they were calling me all the time, trying to get me to run, sending in Morgan Griffith. And I had really kind of convinced myself that I was not going to run. And I had prayed about it and talked about it with my family. My wife wasn't really into it. It's a different job altogether. I didn't want to give up my law practice. But all of a sudden, Tom Garrett wanted to run. And now this is my story, my truth. And so I'm in court, and I get this phone call from my office. And they say, Tom Garrett's here at your office, wants to speak to you. I'm like, well, I'm in court. Okay. So then I'm leaving.
I had to show up on the one day of the year he actually goes to court.
That's try the case. So I finished trying my case. I'm heading home. Well, he goes to the courthouse, and he's with Kevin Reynolds. And the courthouse says, no, Stanley just finished. He's left. And so he drives to my farm out in Glade Hill. Well, as he's driving there, I'm in the gas station pumping gas in my car. And here comes Garrett like a house of fire.
In my defense, the restraining order you got on me is
So he shows up. He's like, hey, Bill, we got to talk. I'm running for House. I'm running for the House of Representatives. I was like, Tom, just come over to the House and we'll sit and talk. And I'd already decided I wasn't going to run. Tom was so singularly focused and determined that he was going to run and that I couldn't run or that I shouldn't run, that it kind of pissed me off. And he leaves. I didn't give an answer because my wife's like, why don't you just tell him you're not running because you told me you're not running. And he closes the door and my wife turns to me and goes, Lord turns to me and goes, damn, you're going to run.
You're going to run.
You're going to run just because Garrett was such a butthead to you. And I said, no. But I said, he wants it bad.
I don't think I was a butthead. I think I was boxing out.
You were full on Tom Garrett.
I didn't hit you. I didn't bump you. I didn't nudge you. I rubbed
full
you.
on Tom Garrett. I mean, Kevin Reynolds is over there going
and rubbing, Bill.
So look, each one of these steps that you felt like you had to take, was that equivalent to like adrenaline?
Yeah, I mean,
I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail.
But why did you run for Congress?
Because if I don't achieve up to something approaching my sort of potential in my worldview at that point, then I had failed. It wasn't about succeeding. It was about succeeding enough. And the problem is, it's like it's like however high you succeed, you've already done that.
Yeah.
So you have to succeed higher. It's a hamster wheel. But it is true that they were calling, and I'm not saying this to be funny, they were calling Bill asking him to run. No one was calling me asking me to run.
That's a true story.
It is a true story.
So I
got up there, they're like, damn it.
Yeah, they're calling me up, and I'm like, look, I'm not a backbencher. I like to get things done for Southside and Southwest. Oh yeah, no. Like in 5 or 6 years, I'm sure you can put a bill on the floor, and we'll try to get you up into leadership in 5 or 6 years. 5 or 6 years, and I was like, no. And then Morgan Griffith got on the phone and said, yeah, he started talking about how he lived in his office and slept on the couch and would go 2 buildings over every morning at 5 in the morning to get there in enough time at the gym so he could take a shower and living there. And I'm like, well, and Morgan would go, well, that's not convincing, is it? I'm like, no. And then Robert Hurt calls up, hey man, you got to do it. I said, well, why'd you quit? He goes, because, I went up there and I turned around and my kid went from 11 to 17 and I'd missed the raising. I'd missed his life. And then he goes, this ain't working for you, is it? I'm like, no. So I'd made up my mind before Garrett made his sudden and unannounced appearance in Franklin County. And I'll never forget that as long as I live, because this is a guy I love. Yeah, he was just keeping me out of the race. I loved him to death.
So
and
he won.
I wanted to tell
We
him.
didn't run against each other.
No,
but you ran.
Yeah, and won. I mean,
won.
In the 5th district, if you got the nomination, you were going to win. He won in a convention and got the nomination, so that was pretty much sewed up the old 5th district at the time, even with Charlottesville in the congressional district. But this was a guy that I'd been toe-to-toe with, actually shoulder-to-shoulder, elbow-to-elbow, and he was pissing me off. He was so single-minded in terms of wanting to run for Congress that my wife thought he'd actually talked me into it out of just like, all right, buddy, you want to try?
And your wife liked me right up until that point, too.
She still loves you. She loves you. She's so excited you're on this podcast. She can't wait to listen to it. Hi, Laura. Told you I'd get him on here. So,
But see, he was being driven to make those decisions.
Yeah. I didn't know
by the
that.
alcohol.
So,
I
well,
just
I
thought it
think
was
so.
cocky
I mean, it
Tom Garrett.
was also again a worldview that was flawed, right? Like, I mean, God loves us, right? And I'm not a preacher, by the way. Won't take the Lord's name in vain, but have cursed once or twice off air. God loves us, and He wants us to be happy, joyful, and free. We get in our own way, and the devil comes in the door you leave open, right? So for me, that was alcohol, and but yeah, I mean, it was. You talk about your kids. I got a 23-year-old and 21-year-old, and
Beautiful.
And they were with me 50% of the time right up until I ran for Congress, and it's been rebuilding relationships ever since, and that's on me. It ain't on them.
So you get the nomination. You are elected the congressman for the 5th district, which is a congressional seat held by James Madison himself,
I know it's very small, big shoes to fill.
and was really cut right through the middle of Virginia, one of the largest congressional districts we had. You go to Washington. Tell us what happened. I mean, what?
Oh, you
what
really
was that
want to know?
like? Yeah.
So okay, so
that's the real thing. I mean, you go from being successful in the Senate and a real doer and a go-getter, and then all of a sudden you go up to Congress and all changes.
After Hermie is in the Senate, I envision him as governor. And I'm not you don't say a damn word, but let other people say it for you. But don't go to Washington. So I get sworn in on January 3rd, and I could be off by a day, 2017. And I go to get committee assignments on January 4th.
How do you get committees? We get just assigned by our caucus.
So
what happens with that?
Well, I'll tell you how we ought to do it. How long you want to make this podcast? Because everybody loves term limits. They have term limit senior staff. There's your deep state and career bureaucrats. But the way you do it in Washington is you go to the committee chair when you are in the majority, which we were, and you say, "Hey, Chairman Conaway," and this is a true story, which will be 95% verbatim. Hey, Chairman Conaway, I grew up on a farm. My dad wasn't a farmer, but I grew up on a farm. I won't embarrass myself on the Ag Committee, and it's the economic driver for the 5th District of Virginia. I want to be on Ag. And he says, well, we'd love to have you. We got to pass a farm bill this Congress. And I said, and Bill, you could almost script this. I said, well, I'm going to tell you what, let me take a look at it, and I will do everything I can to find a way to get to yes. And he says, well, he hadn't written it yet. And I said, well, now, I'm from Louisiana County, Virginia, so say what you want, but I think you're asking me to vote for a bill, promise to vote for a bill that doesn't exist in order to be on a committee where I can best serve my constituents. And he said, if you want to be on Ag, yeah. And I said, and this is verbatim, I said, maybe I ought not be on your committee, or maybe I shouldn't be on your committee. And he said, maybe you shouldn't. So I worked my way down the aisle in the House chamber, I'm still starstruck because I'm there, right?
Yeah.
And to the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, and said, I'd like to be on the Judiciary Committee. And he said, you've got some cockamamie ideas on federal marijuana policy. And I said, I think you have cockamamie ideas. And you know me well enough to know that I would do this.
He was Thomas for legalization.
Well, I'm not. So here's what I'm for: the Constitution of the United States, right? And so we've tortured the Interstate Commerce Clause to the point where everything that they want to be interstate commerce is, and nothing that they don't isn't.
Right.
And so meanwhile, you got a kid in Virginia going to federal prison because it's still illegal federally for selling marijuana, and a kid in Colorado getting an Entrepreneur of the Year award. Right? I mean, and that's, as I said earlier, justice that isn't blind isn't justice. So the way marijuana policy should work is that the 9th and 10th Amendments still matter. If California wants to have different marijuana policy than Alabama, then that's exactly what the framers envisioned. And the federal government, with the exception of interstate transport of marijuana between states, which is the federal government's domain, should get the hell out of the way. Right? Now, what I did do in Virginia was work with Dave Marston to get medical cannabinoids legalized, and I'd do that over again all week long because I know too many people who've been helped by those products. But so it's not, and in a personal note, I've smoked enough marijuana to know I don't like it. I haven't touched it in years. I didn't like it whenever I was drinking. No matter how much I had to drink, I thought I was in control. Like I might not be standing up straight, I might be slurring my speech, but I'm fine, you know. I was out in Colorado at one point and smoked some marijuana and lost track of time and space. And I'm like, I never want to do this again because the control freak in me was like, I don't even know if I've been sitting here 5 minutes or 5 hours. So it's not that I'm pro marijuana. I'm pro justice. I'm pro Constitution. Virginia should be able to do it differently than Maryland. The federal government has stuck their finger into way too many pies that they don't belong in. So, but that dovetails well with what God was doing in my life that I never realized, because God's giving you gifts while you're getting slapped in the face and you don't know it. So what they do with conservatives and constitutionalists in Congress is they warehouse them. So I ended up on the Homeland Security Committee, which has no responsibility. It's a debate club. Because it's a new committee, and so everything in Washington's a turf war. Nobody gave up any actual responsibility, so they don't literally have purview over anything. And then the Foreign Affairs Committee, which is, if you've read the Constitution, like literally an executive branch responsibility. There's a Foreign Affairs Committee in the House of Representatives, but it's the executive branch. So they put me on these. They warehouse. Look who's on.
Because you were standing up for just, I'm not going to go along to get along.
Well, so a high
committees.
point in my entire life, and I'm actually quite proud of this, is getting dressed down by the president in the Oval Office. And it was Donald Trump, who I agree with most of the time. But like, I don't care who you are. If I think you're wrong, I will politely and respectfully tell you I think you're wrong. And so that happened, and you know,
wait. So let's
Yeah, wait a minute. You can't just glass over that.
Oh, you know, I yelled at Donald Trump. Donald Trump yelled at me.
I did not yell at him. I didn't yell at him.
So you finally get assignments. I mean, it's your freshman year. You're one of 435. You go from probably cock of the rock over here in
I
the
was
Senate.
2.5% of the vote and 50% of the legislature to 0.205% of the vote.
That had to be a change. When you got there, what'd you think? I mean, it's great. They're calling you Congressman. People are probably kissing
I
your
never
ass.
have. You know that. I like you call me Senator or Congressman now. I don't like it. I mean, because this is the United States of America. We fought a war to not have titles and royalty.
Right. So you get there. What happens? I mean,
Well,
clearly it wasn't your bag over time.
so we had the first thing we had was this. They were going to fix Obamacare, and by fix I mean make it worse than it already was. And so I think President Trump got sold a bill of goods by somebody from Wisconsin whose name may or may not have rhymed with small buy-in. But they got this bill to make it better, and I've looked at it, and my staff's looked at it. I had amazing staff, and we think it's worse. And so they're trying to whip votes for this thing. And the longer we look at it, the more we realize this is actually worse than what it's replacing. And the distinguishing difference is that instead of being called Obamacare, it's going to be hung around President Trump's neck forever, right? So I'm thinking I'm doing this cat a favor, because this thing, first of all, how much has the cost of healthcare decreased since we passed the Affordable Care Act? And I use air quotes for those of you in podcast land. And the answer is it's skyrocketed, right? And your choices in healthcare have diminished. And folks like Bill Stanley and myself were screaming and yelling from the mountaintops that that's exactly what was going to happen. And it's no fun to say, see, I told you so, when we're talking about choosing between getting an elective surgery or sending your kid to college.
And it's not improving healthcare in the underserved areas either. It's making it worse.
Gosh, because your providers are going out, because
And they're not getting
that's not where the
reimbursed
money is
by the government.
right? I mean, it's so. But the president wants a victory.
And by the way, why can't people
See that.
see that?
Because it's an entitlement.
So, well, no, but Aristotle said reputedly, you give me the storytellers, I'll give you the future. And the left systematically took over every apparatus of storytelling from K-12 education to higher ed to Hollywood to half of country music, all of pop music. So we don't talk about what they don't want to talk about, right? And that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to do some of the other things I'm trying to do. But yeah, so he brought us into the people who were opposed to this plan. He brought in groups of 3, and he's incredibly well prepared and a delightful person in a small group is Donald Trump. He really is. But this was not a fun meeting because he wanted us to do something that we were reflexively opposed to doing. So there's 2 dudes and myself, and the first guy is like, Mike, I got 8 points higher, election result in your district than you did. You probably should vote for this bill. And John, I got 6 points higher in your district. And I'm thinking to myself, I got 8 points higher in my district than you did, Donald Trump. Let's see how well you've done your homework. And
Starting it on the right foot with that attitude.
So he got to me, and he goes, Tom, why aren't you voting for the bill? I'm like, you've done your homework. And I said, sir, I think it's worse than what it's replacing, and your name's on it. It's going to be hung around your neck, not that guy's. And he's like, well, and he literally said, well, I'm more conservative than you. At that point, remember the guy.
I'm more conservative than you, Tom Garrett.
You did, and at that
I'm
point,
more conservative.
I had
people.
the Tom and Jerry cartoon. You've seen it where there's like a little Tom or a little Jerry angel on one of Tom's shoulders,
Yes.
a little devil in the other, and the little devil was telling me, tell him exactly how I felt, and the angel's like, it's the president of the United States. It might be a bad call. So I just smiled and nodded, and that was the end of that. But and then I went home that day and said, "Hey, I got yelled at by the president of the Oval Office today. It was awesome." And truly, like, I don't know what they'll put on my gravestone, but if they put yelled at by the president of the Oval Office, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah.
But
that
that didn't
mark.
So I was still smoking then, and what happened was they called that vote, but they never held it. They called the vote, and the whip Steve Scalise and the majority leader McCarthy at the time and Patrick McHenry, the deputy whip, all those guys are running around the floor. They've targeted the members whose arms they need to twist, and I ain't having any part of it. So I went out to the front of the U.S. Capitol building House chamber and stood behind a column and was chain smoking cigarettes. I'd called my staff and said, are y'all watching this on C-SPAN? Yeah, we're watching it on C-SPAN. I said, all right, I got my ringer turned on. If they actually call the vote, let me know so I can go in. I was hiding from the whip team because I wasn't trying to hear the yelling. And then they ultimately, we sat there for like 3 hours playing a game of chicken, and then they didn't have the vote. And then I filed the repeal and replace that Kevin McCarthy himself had carried and voted for, not once, not twice, not 2 times or 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times in the 114th Congress. The exact same bill, word for word. And they said, why are you doing that? And I said, well, your ass carried it and voted for it 5 times. I ran and said that we would repeal this thing. You're welcome. No. We do that for the base. And you know how Tom reacts to that. I'm like, what you do is lie then. Because remember, when they carried that bill and they voted for that bill, the Democrats had the Senate and the White House. And the guy in the White House happened to have the same name as the bill. So you knew it was never going to happen. So they had these show votes to tell the American donating, right, conservative public, like, look at the fight that we're waging for you. And then when I tried to discharge it, meaning get a quarter of a half of the body to get a floor vote, they wouldn't let it get a floor vote. And I got in even more trouble with leadership. We don't want to do that.
So you're not going in the right direction.
Oh, no. But I mean, so the first day I'm in the Senate, and you might not remember this, but I can't even remember the issue, but we were debating how we were going to message something, literally the first day in the state Senate. And I raised my hand, and the majority leader, whose name I shan't use, but I like your necktie, is like, Mr. Garrett. And I said, why don't we just say X, Y, and Z? And he goes, because they'll call us racist. I said, they're going to call us racist anyway. Let's just tell the truth. It's not racist. That's bull crap. Let's just tell the truth. That won't work. So that was how I started off on that. I mean,
Congress.
That was in the state Senate.
State Senate, I'm sorry.
And then with the bill that you talked about earlier, they're telling us that we're book burners because we don't want pornographic material being forced to our children to read, not in the library, but required reading. You have to notify the parent if it's explicit material, and they're like, you're book burners, you're book banners. I saw Claire Guthridge-Castañaga the other day talking about books that are banned in Madison County and the shame, and I'm like, what are they, kicking doors in and grabbing your copy of whatever Toni Morrison?
Blubber.
Yeah. So the point is that nobody's banning anything. I don't even have a problem with young people reading it. I have a problem with young people being required to read it without telling mom and dad. And so I think even in the caucus meeting that day, I'm like, I'm going to read it. And they're like, no, you're not. And I got gavelled down not by Democrats, but by Republicans. And then, as I recall, we won the vote.
That's correct.
Because...
So you were a bull moose in a china shop in the Senate. What was the difference between, you have gotten your way in the Senate. You understand the process. You understand the procedure. You're thrown into the Congress. You've gone from 1 of 40 to 1 of 435. What were the differences you saw in terms of ability, for that body, legislative body? Does it get anything done? I mean,
so a good member of the House of Delegates of the Virginia Senate would be a good member of Congress. I mean, it's not a skill set gap. It's not. The way it works is different. One of the differences that annoyed me in Congress was that they had segregated, and I actually choose that word quite intentionally, the cloakroom, right? There was a Democrat cloakroom and a Republican cloakroom. The reason that when I said I'm an alcoholic and I'm not seeking re-election until I get this under control, well, I didn't say that, but that was because I used to sit in the cloakroom and eat really sugary food with Dick Saslaw and Janet Howell and ask about how their Hawaii trip went over Christmas with their kids. And
in the Senate.
In the Senate. And in Congress, I walked in the Democrat, and I really think highly of gosh, I can see his face, Bobby Scott. I got to work with Bobby. He's a gentleman, right? I disagree with him on almost every issue, but he's a good human being with good intentions who's reached different conclusions than me. But I walked in the Democrat cloakroom like 2 times, and it's like scratching the needle off the, everybody looks. And same, it's not like the Democrats are bad and Republicans are good. If a Democrat walked in the Republican cloakroom, it's like, what are you doing in here? Everybody stop talking. So-and-so's in here. And I hated that, right? And so that was Washington. And I'm convinced that leadership did not want us to be friends and break bread with people across the aisle because it made us more difficult to control when we would take the time to understand where they were coming from, right? And it's all about control. But my argument to Paul Ryan and McCarthy was, dude, we don't even need, we could save a pile of federal tax dollars. Just stop having a Congress. We'll just get a speaker, a minority leader, a majority leader, a minority leader, and let them, if all the members do exactly what they're told, then the whole foundational concept of the legislative branch is broken. And they all know it's true, too. So when this fight was had not long ago with McCarthy, some of the concessions they got. For Speaker. Yeah, for Speaker. Some of the concessions they got, we had a bill called the Read It Act in Congress, which stood for Review Every Act Diligently in Total. I'm slow. READIT. And the genesis of that was they gave us a 4,200-page bill and said you have 4 hours to vote yes or no, and all the Republicans should vote yes, and all the Democrats should vote no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like Madison or Jefferson, these guys are rolling over in their graves. So when they had this big fight with McCarthy, one of the concessions they got was an unwaivable rule that they'd have at least 96 hours to review a bill before they were forced to vote on it. That stuff wasn't going to happen if they hadn't had that very public spat. And
Bob Good, your replacement.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
After Denver Riggleman.
I hate when
you gave us David Denver Riggleman.
I told Bob Good this. I listened to the radio and I hear his comments and I'm like, daggone, he's better at this than I was. And that, which is awesome. But like, I'm human. I got a little bit of an ego thing. So, that good things happen. But the differences are that the people who have the power will do almost anything to retain the power. And then we talk about, Bill, you and I have had this conversation, and your comments on what gives you pleasure as a senator, that is doing things for Southside Virginia and your community. There's 2 types of people that run for office. There's be somebodies and do somethings. And and Hermie, I think, is a safe bet. I just met you today, but you've already been somebody. Yeah. So it's not like, you're going to be a state senator and get notoriety beyond that, which you had, driving alongside some of the greatest drivers ever. Right. And so the be somebodies will sell their soul upon arrival in order to keep that lapel pin, right? They would go to the chair of the ag committee and he'd say, you have to vote for the farm bill if you want to be on ag. And they'd go, okay. And I wasn't wired that way. And it's not that I didn't want to, I like Mike Conaway, I like Bob Goodlatte. I think very highly of those men, but I'm not going to agree to not do something when I ran, because that's the promises you make on the campaign. Right. It is not, I'll go succeed. It's, I'll go try to do this.
That's right. And I've had that very conversation I've told everybody that I've knocked doors and talked to, not only potential constituents, but business owners. So this is a call to service for me. I've never thought about wanting to run for office. I have no desire to be a quote unquote politician, but I do see a need not only for my area of Southside Virginia to have a voice, but I also see a need for somebody with a different set of eyes and a different life experience and different things that I deal with on a daily basis, that I think it would be good to have somebody like that in the mix. And there are a lot of really smart people over here with varying backgrounds that I respect greatly. And, you know, and I hope that there's, I think a little bit of, you know, diversity with where I came from and what I'm doing. You know, like just like the other day, I'm talking, and Bill knows I've got this thing about the free market system, you know, and fair government and capitalism, and, you know, people should, you know, less government, these whole things. And so I've really don't like when the government dictates things that relate it to small business and those kind of things. And I'm like, every once in a while, 99 out of 100 people that I talk to, oh, Hermie, it's great. We appreciate somebody like you taking the initiative to go try to make a difference. But that 1 in 100 is going to say, well, I mean, Sadler, you got plenty of money. Why are you doing this or doing that or doing the other? And I'm like, first of all, I live with 4 women, so you can never have enough money. But
for the record, that was Sadler, not Garrett, that said that.
Yeah. But, you know,
Shep.
but I told him, I said, you know, I've got 300 employees in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and every 2 weeks I've got to make a $500,000 payroll. And so I'm not supposed to care about what, you know, at least if they're going to make these decisions and put, in my opinion, some of these extra burdens on small businesses through minimum wage mandates and taxes and regulation, if they're going to do all these things to make that a tougher nut for me to crack, then, you know, I think that, you know, I have a right to be concerned, and I think I have a right to go to voice my opinion on where I am and where I sit and how these things affect me. Not to mention the fact that Bill knows, before I started to really get involved, I went through the proper channels of trying to come speak to my elected officials. And they went from calling me scuzzy to not wanting to talk to me to being tone deaf to what was going on in our own area of the district. And so how much do you know, how long do you sit there and keep taking it? And so that's it's a very motivating thing. But my intentions are to do good things, and try to bring some relief and some a voice for my area of Virginia that, in my opinion, we hadn't had in recent years.
Yeah.
So I've heard more, and I'm not just saying this. I've heard more people more times say we hope Hermie will decide to get involved than anybody else. And he was one of them. So I know there's been some people coming to you asking you to run. A lot of candidates go, well, they asked me to run, and I'm like, who is they?
Yeah.
But there are a couple.
And at the same time, there's been a lot of people that have tried to scare me off once I decided to run as well, which I take that as a compliment.
Oh, I mean, they've told me what they're going to say and do about, you know, and Food Lion Sparkling Water. This brings you this segment of the program.
Taking a picture is proof.
No, a couple of things. I like to co-opt the lexicon, the rhetoric of the left to defeat the left. I believe that we should strive for the greatest good for the collective.
Sure.
That's leftist. And the way you do that is by empowering the individual. Right? If somebody said NASCAR can continue to run, but they have to run in a manner such that there'll never be another accident, it would be a very boring sport to watch. And there are those in the state police who would argue that it is now, because I heard your segment with Kirko. But when you created an opportunity for everyone to pursue their own happiness, so long as they're not harming others, as I paraphrase Jefferson, then you ensure also that there will be cataclysmic failure, right? But for my failures, right, I'm still miserable and drinking. I needed to fail in order to succeed, at least in my heart and my happiness, right? And so that's what free markets do. And again, if you're looking for the best for the collective, empowering the individual ensures that some people will succeed wildly and some people will fail wildly, but ultimately you get a better outcome when 1,000 different people pursue their own good idea than you do when central planners say this is our 5-year plan.
So why? And I don't want to jump too far ahead of but you've been all the way to Congress, and now you're coming back running for the House again. So why again, and why now?
So
and before but that's a great question, Tom. you obviously became even more miserable in the house.
I believe the proper terminology is more miserable.
More miserable.
Now that sounds like an Emporia word.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I remember is, look, every time you were determined in the Senate, when we would talk when you were in the Congress, you weren't happy. I mean, I never felt like you were just, man, this is a job for me. I appreciate the opportunity, man. I mean, still doing good things, still saying great things on the radio, still doing the Tom Garrett thing. But clearly there was a breaking point where you had to come back here to the capital of Richmond to regain yourself.
Well, I don't know. I haven't yet. I'm trying to. If you're talking about running for office.
No, I'm talking about when you made that announcement right here in California.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, you know why I made it, where I made it. I made it on at the Barbara Johns statue because Barbara Johns is a freaking American hero, a hero of American history, not black history. It pisses me off when we talk about black history and white history. It's American history. You've heard me say this before, Bill. The American Revolution, executed properly, is perpetual. It never stops because the ideas that we were given by the founders are unachievable. Right? But that's okay, because me trying to be Christ-like is also very unachievable, but that doesn't absolve me of my responsibility to try. So Barbara, and I've had the great honor, I tried to get Barbara Johns the Congressional Medal of Freedom posthumously.
You got a post office, I think, named after it.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes. And got a post office named after a fallen sailor from Flavanna every time I drive past the Troy, Virginia post office, because that young man signed his life away for us and then gave it, and if we don't remember him, then shame on us. But, yeah, I came back here because if I can draw attention to something in my failure, which I perceived that to have been.
And you mentioned even that there was like an ethics investigation.
Oh, dude, there was a 305-page ethics report. Google it. You can read it.
On you.
On me. Oh, yeah, that's your tax dollars at work. One of the questions was, we understand you have firearms in your office. And I'm like, as I'm allowed to. And they're like, and we were told they're loaded. And I said, I've found unloaded firearms to be less useful. Like, are y'all going to interview me about something that's actually against the rules? Because I've already checked on all this.
Now, was that a plant? I mean, was somebody coming after?
I can't. I mean, so ultimately, I have so many staffers who I'll start giving shouts out to Paul Hartman and Hallie Pence, who works for Governor Youngkin, right, and Marissa Mullen and Tyler Chinchatti and Matt Hanrahan. And these are young people, and I say that with not disrespect, and Tripp Grant and Elliot Harding, who I still talk to like at least monthly, if not weekly, right? So the staff treated like servants. I got Hallie Pence.
That was the ethics complaint that you were.
Oh, they said, well, you have staff walking your dog, dude. Like there was an article in the Washington Post about a fellow who'd walked the dogs for 50 years worth of presidents, and they were talking about how amazing it was. The kids. I'm old. I saw a hat the other day that said it's weird being as old as the old people or the same age as the old people. But it was, hey, how can I get out of this office for a little while? Whose turn is it to walk the dog? I want to walk the dog, like they said. I guess
that was in violation of congressional rules.
In violation of Bubcus, right? I mean, because I wasn't making anybody do anything. So you could say, isn't it terrible? It's still raining, but if you're in the middle of a drought, then the rain's a good thing. It's all how you frame it, right? Or Tom Garrett had staff picking up his dry cleaning. Exactly 0 people picked up my dry cleaning exactly 0 times. So some of it was made up out of whole cloth, and the other of it there was no there. And again, I named a bunch of names. You go find any of the people I just named and ask them how they felt working for me, and I think that I'll let them speak how they felt. And again, the fact that we still are in contact perpetually, I think, speaks to what our relationship was. So,
and there was a report, and there's insinuations, but there was no finding of
the finding was, well, maybe kind of. And they said I tried to play out the clock, and I'm like, y'all can kiss my behind. There's a rule that says that I have the right to have one of my peers present when I'm being grilled by the ethics committee. And they could never get a member of Congress to show up. And I'm like, which one of the members of Congress is going to be there today? And they're like, well, we couldn't get anybody, but come on down anyway. I'm like, no. Right? And you're an attorney. Yeah. It's like, I've read your rules.
Very smart move.
Well, because it's easy to sit back. And again, it's like people say, Hermie, you have enough money. Ain't nobody running for the Virginia General Assembly to get rich. Right? I mean,
$19,000 a year.
Yeah. Well, in the Senate, I think the House is like 18.8,
Yeah. So what brought you to the Barbara Johns statue, which is here on Capitol Square here in Richmond? What got you to that point? I mean, that was an amazing acknowledgement.
I've given some amazing floor speeches, and I still think me calling myself an alcoholic and saying I'm not seeking re-election's got more views than anything.
Probably.
On YouTube. No, man. I mean, again, like I said, if I can shine a light on somebody in my moment of failure, then that's a good person to shine a light on. The story of that young woman who was told by the clergy and the teachers and her parents that you just aren't going to buck the system, sit down and shut up. And she still got up on that stage and said, and this is stolen from her uncle, Vernon Johns, who was played on film by James Earl Jones, which, I mean, that's not too bad. Who would sit and say, if all people are created equal, then why is there a separate schoolhouse for the kids that have this color skin? Right?
Robert Johns out of Farmville, Virginia.
Virginia.
During the mass resistance of Virginia, which refused to integrate their schools.
So what
after
they do, it's so
Brown
racist that they
Board of Education.
So Barbara Johns' case gets rolled into Brown. Nobody remembers Barbara Johns. They remember Brown because it's 3 cases rolled into one. And they're so racist that instead of desegregating, they shut the school down. Then they opened a private entity that you could go to, and the tuition was that your skin color was right. But this young woman wanted to be nothing but a librarian, had the courage of her convictions to stride up on the stage and call BS on the whole system, got death threats. The family had to move 3 states away, grew up and became a librarian and didn't pound the drum all her life about what a hero she was. She did what she thought was right in the moment without regard to what the powers that be told her. And so she's a hero of mine. And as I think I said earlier, I've gotten the opportunity to meet her sister who's still alive and living in the Northeast. And I told her, I said, I love your sister. And she's like, that's weird. But that's why I went to the Barbara Johns statue. That's why Barbara Johns is a hero of mine alongside people like Thomas Jefferson, who owned slaves. But if you read Jefferson's writings on that very subject, even he knew that there was a problem, but an apparatus had been built into the system that would allow for the termination of that horrific evil perpetuated by one person upon another. And so that was, Barbara Johns is, dude, she's awesome. And
what did you do after that? I mean, it was very symbolic. You stood in front of what is one of the greatest monuments we have here in the Capitol. And then, all of us were shocked. And you just kind of, I guess you went and fixed yourself, or just,
dude, man. So it started again, I know that 4 years, 8 months, and 21 days ago, I was hungover and I know I haven't been since. So it started with me literally getting down on my knees and saying, God, I can't do this. Probably tearfully, I can't do, and I don't use the C word. I can't do this. You don't have time on the podcast to describe the stupid systems that I'd come up with to control the way that I drank, and it wasn't working. And I was talking to a friend the other day, me drinking was like Russian roulette. 5 out of 6 times it's harmless, but the 6th, catastrophic going to happen, at least as far as I'm concerned. And so I'm just praying. But what happened then is I made myself a lame duck. And the sort of the story I tell is that people that were calling me on Monday weren't taking my call on Tuesday, overnight, right? And I want to rewind a little bit because we talked about conservatives and constitutionalists getting warehoused on particular committees. So I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and I'm a little bit like, damn it, this isn't where I wanted to be. I wanted to be on Ag. I wanted to be on Judiciary. And there's a Czech missionary named Petr Jášek who's being held in a prison in the Republic of Sudan under a guy named Omar al-Bashir, who's subsequently been deposed. Praise God. And he's there for aiding rebels in Sudan, which means giving food and medicine and clean water to displaced Christians from the Nuba Mountain region. And I'd signed up for what was called the IRF, the International Religious Freedom Caucus, in the House because, it was, you should be free to worship or not worship how you choose in the land of your birth without fear, right? That's just a basic underlying concept. So I've signed up for this, and there's 60 plus or minus members of the House who've signed up this letter to get him freed. The Czech government wants him freed. There's a dozen senators. The U.S. State Department wants him freed. I'm the last dude to the dance, so I'm 1/10 of 1/1000th of 1% of the effort that got him freed. And then he got out, and Trip Grant was the staffer who I'm like, find a phone number for him. So I call him in Prague. Still drinking at this point. Call him in Prague. He's never talked to me before. I said, I'm so happy. I was praying for you, which is true. Although my God walk was at a different spot then. And I said, hey man, how are you? He goes, I'm fine, but my colleagues are still in prison. And I went, what? Colleagues? Well, what happened was there were 2 local nationals who didn't have 2 governments to go to bat for them, who weren't the Czechs' problem or the Americans' problem. So when the white guy from Europe got let free, the Africans from Sudan still languished in a prison that was so filled with people who were so radical they were too radical for Al-Qaeda, because Omar al-Bashir was an Al-Qaeda type of guy, and the only people in that prison were people who were too radical for him. So these guys are being treated in a manner such that I won't describe on this podcast, and that's a high bar since we've already talked about Shep's manscaping. Right? And so I said to Jášek, I said, well, I'll help. And like reflexively, I'll help. And I got in my car and drove a fake Sudanese embassy that day. And I say fake Sudanese embassy because they were state-sponsored terrorism, so they didn't have a real embassy in Washington. They had an apartment building that they called an embassy. Knocked on the door, handed them a business card, and said, "I want Hassan Abdurrahim and Abdul Manem released from prison." And they're like, "Who are they? Who are you?" And they saw the business card. They got on the phone with like Khartoum, which is like 11 o'clock at night over there at that point. Like then, like, holy crap, there's this congressman here. So that day they said, "Will you come to Sudan?" And I know it's a state sponsor of terrorism, and I know they don't have an embassy, and I know that, and I'm like, "Will you let these cats out of prison?" And by the way, I want their families too. And that was a whole other thing, like define family. And so we did that. And I said, "Yeah, I'll come to Sudan." Then I went back to the Foreign Affairs Committee, the State Department, the White House. They're like, "You can't go to Sudan. They'll cut your head off on a video." And I'm like, "I don't think they will." They're like, "You can't go to Sudan." I'm like, "I'm going to go to Sudan." And now I'm still drinking, right? But like, frick it. Like, I gave my word, so I'm going. And I get over there, and they're like, "Tell the Trump administration we want to mainstream back into the world community. Our trains don't run worth of crap. The Chinese can't fix them." I said, "I will write the nicest letter you can imagine to the Trump administration saying how good you guys are if you'll let these people out." Then I got back to Washington, went down the skiff, and said, "They're terrible." And so like 4 or 5 months, and again, so on this case, again, it was Trip Grant, staffer, who did the vast bulk of the legwork, and James Vandenberg, who's still doing political work in Virginia. Those two were my leads on that. And like 4 months later, Awadia Abdurrahim, Hassan's wife, and 5 kids and his mother moved to Buckingham County, Virginia, where a bunch of amazing people, Bob Johansson and others, had gotten a home for them to move into. And then 2 months after that, Hassan Abdurrahim and Abdul Manem and I met on a Tuesday morning, October 3rd, I think 2017 at Dulles. I'm hungover. I know this because I wished I was dead. But I'm at the airport and I'm like, dude, God, let me be part of this. Like, so now there's 9 people who are in the United States over the Trump travel ban because I gave a crap when nobody else did. But really what it was is God let me have a part in that, because if he wanted them out, they're going to get out, right? So I got to play in that one, and I'm just, again, still drinking, but I'm like, holy crap, like I just did something that matters, and I feel like huge and tiny all at the same time. And then in time I realize it's all God, but I'm still drinking, and and I still can't find my real happy. I just knew that I'd actually done something that mattered. And these, by the way, like Abdul Manem, so Joshua Hassan Abdurrahim is a student studying business at a Virginia Public University. And 5 years ago, he was in a refugee camp outside of Khartoum.
Wow.
And that's like, wow, thank you, God, for letting me have a part in that.
It's amazing.
So it just, now I think, oh my gosh. But now I've said, fast forward to May, because that's October of 17, fast forward to May of 18, I've said I'm not running again. And people that were calling me on Monday aren't taking my call on Tuesday. Now this guy comes in my office, and I intentionally call him this guy because there may or may not be some IC affiliations in this gentleman's past. And he says, "Will you go to Syria?" And and this is, again, close to verbatim. I said, "Do you know who I am?" He's like, "Yeah, I know who you are." I said, "I'm like the least important person in the entire Congress. I am an alcoholic who's announced he's not running again. Why on earth do you want me to go to Syria?" And he goes, "Because nobody else will go." I know, right? It's a punch in the gut. I'll tell the Carrico story in a minute if you'll let me.
Sure.
But I thought, well, like, okay, God, like, okay. And so I guess Tulsi Gabbard and Dick Black went to Syria and met with Assad, but they went like through official channels and met with the and I'm not, by the way, I like Dick Black and Tulsi Gabbard, and met with the Russian-backed regime. We were going across a pontoon bridge on the Tigris River in a truck. And we were still fighting ISIS at that point in Darfur province and Baghouz. Like, there was a big battle still going on. So I'm going in, and there's stuff blowing up. And but I thought, well, nobody else will go. He said, maybe if you go and don't die, somebody who actually matters will go. And I thought, well, you kicked me right between the legs, but I'm happy for God to use me how he can. So this is now Thanksgiving of 2018. I've been sober from May to November. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I have no idea what I'm literally praying, like, dear God, put me where you want me, amen. And I'm on top of a rooftop in Amuda, Syria, and there's gunfire in the distance. It's Thanksgiving night, and I met this missionary. By the way, if you know pro wrestling,
He used to run a wrestling.
The Russians, Ivan and Nikita Koloff, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I think Nikita is a pastor now.
He is.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I ran into him in Nashville, Tennessee at the National Association of Religious Broadcasters, and we got to telling our own testimony. And I said something was a coincidence, and he's like, coincidence is just God's way of saying I don't need the credit. So I run into this missionary named David Eubank, who's a former Army Ranger and Special Forces guy, who started a group called Free Burma Rangers movie. Go watch it, right? If you take anything away from this, if you take any two things away from this, TomForDelegate.com and Free Burma Rangers movie.
Seltzer water from Food Line.
Seltzer water from Food Line, but tell them to push the price back down. And I'm on this rooftop on Thanksgiving, and I said to David Eubank, the founder of this group, I said, Dave, I love this stuff. I love it. But, am I being selfish? I got 3 kids. I could die. And he doesn't bat an eyelash. He doesn't pause. He goes, and this is, again, word for word. He goes, Tom, everybody's going to die. The question God wants to know the answer to is how we're going to live. What? And it just punched me in the gut. So I thought, I'm going to die, and that's okay. Right? Because I'm in a place now where instead of wanting to die, I accept that I will die. Instead of wanting to be out of here, I want to do everything I can while I am. So you say, well, why are you running for the House of Delegates? Blah, blah, blah. Dude, man, fairy tales happen, or second chances happen in fairy tales, and very, very rarely in life. I was good at this job when I was drunk 4 nights a week.
One of the best.
And how good could I have been? I mean, Babe Ruth was cavorting and drinking and smoking cigars, and I wonder how good he could have been. And Mickey Mantle said, if I'd have known I was going to live this long, I'd have made some different life decisions. And I'm 50.
And what did Carrico say about you that one time?
So that was it. So I got that. It was Bryce Reeves, Dick Saslaw, Janet Howe were the first 3 phone calls, and a few days later, Billy Carrico calls and says, "I'm praying for you. I'm proud of you. If I start tearing up on your podcast, will I be the first?"
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to then.
Okay.
He said, "I've been praying for you. I'm proud of you." And I said, "Well, thank you." And he said, "I want to tell you a story." And I said, "Okay." And he said, one day, it was a Friday, and I drove back to Southwest Virginia. His drive is like 7 hours.
5.5, 6.
Yeah, it's long. And he said, I got home, and my wife said, "Bill, I've been watching y'all on PBS all week. Isn't Tom Garrett amazing?" And he said, "I didn't even look up for my food. I just said, I'd like to know how good he could be if he wasn't hungover half the time." And I mean, I know professionally that y'all know that guy, right? I guarantee you there's somebody that you drove with who was just gifted, and he's mailing it in.
Yeah.
And that was it was a great compliment because I respect him and I respect his wife probably more. Just kidding. Y'all are both great. But it was a real insult. And then I think about that my dad sort of talking about the parable of the talents. Dude, I was mailing it in. "Oh, you were good at it." "Oh, I could have been better." And so why do you want to be in the House of Delegates? Well, the core values are primarily the same. I will tell you that there's some criminal justice stuff, some substance abuse stuff that I think we could do better in Virginia that wouldn't cost more money, that might help more human beings. But the essence of Tom is the same as it was when I was getting awards from the National Federation of Independent Businesses and the NRA and the VCDL and Virginia Society for Human Rights. What I'm not going to do is roll back into the chamber feeling like crap because I was out until 2 a.m. I might be out until 2 a.m, but it won't be drinking too much. It'll be, probably doing something that advances my ability to get a Democrat vote on a bill that I wouldn't have otherwise or what have you.
Right.
So that's it. It's me asking the people to trust me enough to give me a second chance to do what I think I did pretty well when I went. So and again, somebody said, "Is it beneath you?" And I laughed at them. There's nothing. This serving in the General Assembly of Virginia is beneath no one.
Yeah.
You know what John Quincy Adams did after he was president?
He ran for Congress
and served in the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if an IBM CEO wants to teach at community college, is that beneath him? It's not. It's he's doing what he thinks is best for the best way he can get back.
And you do get a lot. You get so much done here in the House of Delegates or the Senate. I mean, you pass bills that make differences, not like the backbencher stuff that you went through in Congress. That
was just another vote.
Yeah, and I knew I was going to be miserable in that because I'd rather get something done than just do something.
Well, I will tell you this: Andy Biggs, and he was the chair. Was the chair of the House Freedom Caucus. Right after I left, and I thought, crap, I could have but you can't if you drive your car looking in the rearview mirror, sooner or later you're going to hit a wall.
Yeah.
So I do want to do this though. I did carry that fireworks bill. That was one that I would carry every year because in the way we drew that bill up, every county in Virginia could do their own statute.
I carried it after you left.
I was going to ask Hermie when he's in the Virginia Senate and I'm in the House, God willing, if he'll carry it. And here's the idea. Dude, South Carolina and Tennessee are making piles of money that could be going to small business owners in Virginia because people are coming from the north and in the case
pay for fire protection, police officers, sheriffs.
That was your addition of the bill. And again, I mean, this is about freedom. Like the right to burn yourself because you don't know how to play with a Roman candle is American as apple pie. So again, and I'm
Glove your thumb is America.
Arlington and Alexandria don't have to do it, but I got a sneaking suspicion that the 56 House of Delegates district will probably generate at least a little bit of revenue at Sprouse's Corner selling some fireworks.
I would tend to agree with you.
So that sort of thing, and again, somebody's going to burn themselves. They are, but what should you be allowed to do in Virginia?
This is a completely irrelevant statement, but y'all remember a couple years ago the firework video of the guy in the wheelchair?
Oh yeah.
Back it up.
Terry.
Put it in reverse, Terry.
Terry.
So they lit the firework and they tried to get Terry real close to the firework, let him light it, and they tried to bag him up, and his wheelchair wouldn't bag up. But it's put it in the comment. Put it in reverse, Terry. Come on, Terry. So that is the name of.
Can you not show that bill at the hearing? That video at the hearing for the bill.
Put it in reverse, Terry is the name of my family group chat that we had.
Wow.
And I don't know why.
And that gentleman in the wheelchair was not harmed.
And he was not harmed.
So when you went up to Congress, what I'm hearing you say is you got there and it was really old school versus new school. I mean,
it was leadership versus everybody else, but leadership would always win because everybody else always envisioned themselves in leadership.
Right. I mean, because your own party warehoused you, as you say.
Oh yeah, on purpose.
So I'm on our local town council.
Really?
So I think my path, I relates to you just a little bit.
Documents.
I relate to you just a little bit because I was in business. I started a retail merchants association. I thought I saw problems with local government. So the businesses, a lot of them encouraged me to run. And I really thought I could go there and make an immediate impact.
Yeah,
I think very similar to what you thought by going to Congress. Well, I tell Hermie all the time and Bill, look, it's not necessarily what's right. It's not what the best idea is. It's what you can get approved. And it's very, very frustrating sometimes, extremely frustrating.
Well, you have to be willing to have the fight even if you know you're going to lose it, but you also need to pick fights that you can occasionally win.
Well, and also, too, I think in Congress, you have to have permission to do certain things, where in the House of Delegates or the Senate, during the summer, you came up with the idea of the bill, you helped draft it, and you put it forward. It was on you or not.
Carry any bill you want up there. It just won't ever get to committee, let alone a floor vote, right? And so that's playing to what you're talking about. You talk about a backbencher, we had some really good bills. The READ Act student security I thought was awesome. I'm still in love with that. I'm going to pitch that to a sitting member here before too long.
So what's Tom Garrett doing now? I mean, you're running for House of Delegates. You've been really working on this refugee issue in the Middle East, have you?
So I've been doing a lot for religious freedom, and working with a filmmaker. We're 3 years into trying to do a documentary series called Exile, and the concept is, as I said earlier, that you should be able to live without fear in the place of your birth, regardless of the color of your skin, how you worship or don't worship, who you love, all these things that the left thinks they have a monopoly on. God loves every single one of us. I have an opinion on what is and isn't sinful, but until I stop sinning my damn self, I probably ought not try to fix other people. I need to work on me.
Yeah.
And God loves all of us, right? And so that's a passion for me that 1 in 26 people has the great fortune of being born in the United States of America, and probably 20 out of 26 people globally would give their left arm to get here. So how can we spread that? Now, the United States, through its foreign policy foibles, I think, has either turned a blind eye to or tacitly encouraged the rape, murder, and destruction of entire communities globally. Not because we're evil, dude. Like, I like to steal from Churchill. We're the worst country in the world except for all the others. In other words, we are the best country in the world, but we still should always be trying to be better.
Right.
That means sometimes taking a turn and going, this is the right policy, and then some point down the road going, or no, it's not, right? So that's something I've been blessed to get. I've been in and out of Iraq and Syria, 6 or 7 times total, if I count Syria and Iraq. And then I spent 2 weeks in Ukraine, a month and a half after the invasion. Got on the receiving end of artillery fire. I'd been on the delivering end a few times. My dad said back when I was trying to play football, it's better to give than to receive. So I did most of my time when I actually got on the field on the defense. And in artillery, I was generally telling somebody else who to blow up or sending the rounds towards the bad guys. And Russia, we got on the receiving end, and that's an eye opener. It is indeed better to give than to receive.
So the seat you're running for, is it a redraw? Is there an incumbent or?
Yeah, so it's the 56, which ironically the first political race I was ever involved in Virginia was as a campaign manager in the 56. It's moved a lot south and west. And so there is an incumbent, but that incumbent's running for an open state Senate seat. And so it's a three-way Republican nominating contest. By the way, have I said tomfordelegate.com?
I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear it.
FOR, Tom FOR, just like Elliot. I'm sorry, Elliot. I'm sorry, Hermie. I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
All the time.
This concludes turning.
I got to cut that part out.
Hermie's getting ready to get mad as a motherfucker
Sorry.
right now.
I was doing so well, too.
Doing great, Tom.
So look, tell us top three campaign promises or initiatives.
You talking about in the future or in the past?
Yeah, I mean, you're
Well,
running.
in the future,
We've
you're
learned
running.
who is Tom Garrett.
So what I want to
stands for.
do,
What
I
are you
really
gonna
think
do?
if the money follows the child, we break the back of the indoctrination machine, right? So that would
Public
be
schools, so school choice.
And I like to say on the campaign trail, the homeschooling fight was the one that was big 6 or 7 years ago. And I say, was the Tebow bill ever passed in Virginia? And everybody goes, no. And I'm like, yes, it was. I passed it. I got vetoed by Terrence J. McAuliffe.
That's right.
Yep, got it out. Rob Bell got it out of the House, and I got it out of the Senate. And we got Democrat votes on that.
You did.
Which, right, that's when you start to know which Democrats have some proclivities that might get them to you on which issues, not on all issues.
And that's big public school.
And we got, you got to get the money to follow the child. That'd be initiative number one. I got constitutional carry to a 2020 vote, and Ralph Northam vetoed or cast the tie-breaking. And I think Winston Sears would vote differently if we could get back to tie in the Senate.
You would be correct.
I think so.
So what is that? What is that?
Constitutional carry just means that you have a right to defend yourself that's given not by the government but by God. And so long as you're not a felon or in a prohibited class, that you should be able to carry without going to your local government and checking in.
Concealed or open?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, open carry as a guy that's done self-defense law in the past, I think is generally a bad idea unless you're trying to send a message.
Tom is strong on the Second Amendment.
So
And number three.
well, here's one. There are two countries on the planet Earth, and I don't know the legality of this, and I'm sitting here with Bill Stanley, so he might be to fix me. There are two countries on the planet Earth where they can advertise prescription drugs to consumers, not doctors: the United States and New Zealand. We've got an opioid epidemic that's killing more young people or killing more Americans every year than the Korean War did. And every time you see a TV commercial for whether it's Olestra for your cholesterol or Ambien for your sleep or whatever it is, what you're doing is saying the solution to your problem comes from a pharmaceutical dispensary. Now, I am delighted that fentanyl exists because as I watched my father die in immense pain from cancer, fentanyl helped ease that pain. But we should look at how we allow pharmaceuticals to be advertised in Virginia. Why do you need to know what to tell your doctor you want? Why not let your doctor, like they do in every other country in the world except for two, tell you what you need? There is a money train that follows big pharma and a lot of other things that is responsible, in part at least, for the fact that the United States is more heavily medicated than the next 5 countries on the planet combined. And I'm not advocating against the fact that there can be medicines that help, but instead against the fact that they can make you think you need it, so you then go lean on your doctor.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, though. I mean,
so it's a speech problem.
Every damn medicine that they have advertised, by the time they get to the side effects, I've never taken that medicine as far as I can tell. I mean, the weirdest thing I ever heard was, as a side effect, was could create worm-like movements of the tongue. What the hell am I going to take that
Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
So, Shep, go out and get some Ozempic. You can have some worm-like movements of the tongue.
I got to recap you one time for the non-political listeners. You totally lost me on your top three.
Okay.
I'll just be honest with you.
So the money following the child.
Layman's term.
The money following the child means that if you
Ultimate
are
school
trapped
choice.
by your zip code, that you should have school choice. Let me give you a quick example on that.
And the government should pay
If
for it. And that
no,
money
they're
will
just
follow
giving
the
you
child.
back the money that you've already paid in taxes for your child.
Yeah, but we give that money to the school system. The school system does not get
This
the
is
money.
state funds, not
State
We
funds.
can't control the federal
Correct.
funds,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But imagine that you didn't
Even
get to
local
choose
funds.
where you shop for groceries. Imagine that the government told you where you shop for groceries based on your zip code, because that's what they do with where your kids go to school.
Yeah.
How good do you think the Food Line or the Walmart would be incentivized?
competition makes everybody better.
Dude, if they told
thing
Tom
with fighting.
Garrett that he was
Absolutely.
going to be a NASCAR driver and he was going to be the only one on the track, then as fast as I drove was as fast as anybody'd go.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but instead,
Well,
there's
and there's no
competition.
incentivation to be any better with
So
public
what-
schools.
The other thing
they
is-
don't have competition.
So what you're saying, if your child has to go to school A, but you prefer them to go to school B and you would have to pay for your child to go to school B, the state would reimburse you for that expense. Is that what I'm hearing?
And what'll happen is you'll get a bunch of schools that start up. Some will fail and some will succeed.
Sure.
Right? But what's driving parental desires as it relates to where their kids go to school? It's academic outcomes, safety, and athletics. Tragically is the third, although I like athletics. And so the schools that have higher academic outcome will get more money and we're going to break the back of a lot of union monopolies, because teachers' unions don't help good teachers. They help bad ones. Good teachers will be in demand as long as there are children who need to be educated. So that's what the money following the child is. Constitutional carry is essentially. Do you remember the story of the Castle Doctrine in the wake of George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin in Virginia?
Yes,
it's one of my favorite Virginia Senate stories. So in Virginia there is no statute, unless it's changed. There's no statutory outlining of your right to self-defense. It's all English common law.
Correct.
And under English common law, a person may use force up to and including deadly force when a person in a analogous situation would perceive an imminent threat to life or of grievous bodily injury to themselves or another. That's the English common law, which means if somebody's beating an old lady to death in a Walmart parking lot, you can cap him.
You can stand in her shoes, basically.
Okay, so
as if she was defending.
So we were freaking out in Virginia because Florida had this stay in your ground law or what have you, and so we got this bill drafted by Legislative Services. I still want to figure out who did this. And it said that a person may use force up to and including deadly force where a reasonable person in an analogous circumstance would perceive an imminent threat to life or grievous bodily injury of themselves or another in their home. Now, the in their home changes the whole game. Yep. That means that if an old lady's getting beat to death in the Walmart parking lot, you have no right to defend her. So that bill passed the House and came to the Senate, passed the Senate and went to the House. I'm sitting on the dais in Courts of Justice Committee. I got Bill Stanley on one side, Bryce Reeves on the other.
Yep.
They read the bill as a pro forma. It was going to pass. And I leaned over to Stanley and I said, "Did you hear that?" He goes, "Yeah, I heard that." I said, "This is a bad bill." And he goes, "I think this might be a bad bill." And so I walked out of off the platform down into the audience over to Philip Van Cleef and whoever, I think it was Anna Koppenrud with the NRA at the time. Mm-hmm. And said, "I'm going to go ask the chairman if he can pass this by for the day. I think this bill sucks." And they said, "This bill, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Wait for it," in their home. And then I went back up to Stanley and Reeves goes, "What just happened?"
Exactly right.
And then we struck that bill down. But that's an example of why Nebraska's wrong, because they're the only state that doesn't have a bicameral legislature. And if they'd had one chamber, they'd have gotten stuck with a crappy bill.
But this allows you to defend yourself and to carry a firearm.
So
gotcha.
that's
sealed carry.
You already
have a constitutional right. You're
It's
acknowledging a constitutional right to bear arms.
I mean, I would never go to the shopping mall that had the little circle with the gun with the line through it and see that sticker on the door and actually go in. But some people would.
Yeah.
So
sure.
And then number three.
So number three is, and again, I don't know the legality of it, but I think we need to, Virginia, to the extent that it is able, should crack down on how we advertise pharmaceuticals in Virginia. Because again, whether it is, and again, I'm not trying to stop the sale of them. But by the way, and I don't want to
we stop advertising and allowing advertising for tobacco products.
But that's federally done, right?
I understand, but there is a compelling state reason to do so.
Oh yeah,
and so the compelling state reason to do so here is you may say that, well, that interferes with the, with the free markets. No, because these drug companies have controls that are
Pfizer
so much
by
bigger
themselves is a top 20 political donor nationally, and the pharmaceutical industry is number 2 in dollars injected into politics nationally. Now, there's a body count. There's a death toll associated with pharma run amok. I'm not even going to get into COVID vaccines and all of that stuff. I won't do it right now. But they care more about money than they do about human life, and I care about freaking human life. Every single life has value.
And if somebody wants to go to your website, somebody wants to sign up to be a delegate in your convention, when is that convention going to be?
May 20th.
Where's it going to be?
At Cumberland County High School.
Cumberland County.
There's no better place to spend a lovely late May Saturday
wearing a
At least
Tom
y'all
Garrett
know.
for delegate shirt.
At least y'all know when and where your convention is. We don't know yet.
I'm so fiscally conservative. The only time I ever got shirts that said Tom Garrett for any office was Congress, when I actually had enough money to spend. Like if I were to call Zach Worrell, who's doing my campaign consulting stuff while he studies for the bar exam, so that's a recipe for success.
Yeah.
If I were to call Zach and say, "Hey, let's buy some shirts," he would slap me. So I'm not going to do that.
Okay, well, so nobody's going to get a shirt when they go to the convention, but go to the convention and be a delegate.
Unless
for
Phil
Tom
Vassar
Garrett.
does a concert for me, in which case, by golly, I'll
We'll have
get shirts.
But
I have a sneaking suspicion that Hermie might have known Phil before he ran for state senate.
I've known Phil a long time.
Yeah, but this has been compelling. It's been a
it's been great.
special
A
episode.
quote of the day: everybody's going to die. It's what you do while you're living. That's what I'm going to remember.
Everybody's going to die. The question God wants to know the answer to is how we're going to live.
I'm going to remember that.
You know, the rise, fall, and redemption of Tom Garrett is a compelling story, and I'm just so glad that God put me with him and to be his friend, to hear his testimony, and also to share it with us here on this podcast. So, Tom, I can't thank you enough for coming
I
on.
want to do one more hat tip in light of that. So the Roanoke Times wrote an editorial that was called Tom Garrett's Legacy, and I was 47 years old when they wrote it. And David Suderline in the Virginia Senate literally sent me a message that goes, "Tom, I think it's a little bit early to be writing your legacy." I said, "I hope so."
Yeah, let's hope so.
I just hope it
Good for
doesn't
you.
happen
Good
while
for
I'm
you.
manscaping. It slip. I could bleed to death.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to another episode of Leaning Right and Turning Left with Sadler in the center. This is a very compelling and moving episode.
Yeah, personally, Tom, Bill has always spoken very highly of you. To me, honored to get to meet you for the first time. Good luck with your attempt to come back and do more good work for the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's an amazing story, and I don't think the story's over just
agree.
yet. So look forward to seeing the rest of
many
it.
more chapters to write. And
Well, whether I win or lose, I don't think I'm going to die on May 20th. So God's got something going on.
no, and
Well, thank you so much.
and
for
you're
your
one of his
service.
great servants. Yeah,
TomForDelegate.com.
there you go. And
I'm just
That's
trying.
a little much now.
if you want to put yours out
He's
there one
kinda
more
like
time,
me
Aaron?
today.
SadlerForVirginia.com.
All right, you guys. I don't even know if I got.
And I got Phil Vassar.
Ladies and
And I'm
gentlemen.
going to buy T-shirts.
Have you even announced yet, Bill? Huh? Have you even announced?
Yeah, I announced.
Okay.
Are you not redistricted? Are you not redistricted in with anybody? Are you?
No, it was a clean district, and if I'm chosen to represent it, it's 74 Donald Trump.
You have
71
the
millennial.
Raucous Caucus coming on here soon.
We do.
You should put them on the spot on some of these contested races.
Maybe we'll take that up. Maybe we'll take that up. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening to another episode. I'm Virginia State Senator Bill Stanley, and I'm leaning right.
And I'm former NASCAR driver and Fox Sports analyst Hermie Sadler, and I'm turning left, leaning right and turning left with Sadler in the center. Senator, thank you everybody for listening this week. And Shep, any parting words, and try not to cuss anymore. You've met your quote on this.
Well,
I know you're
He's all full of macho
blowed
now
up
on
like a
Valentine's
blowfish
Day.
this week.
Well, just what a pleasure it was to meet Tom. Very encouraging words. What a story. God bless. Thanks for listening. And I look forward to the Raucous Caucus.
God bless you all. We'll see you next episode. Thank you, Tom Garrett.
Thank you.
All right, by now, guys, you know I love talking about old wrestling. What you might not know is it's not my real passion. My real passion is helping people save money. My real passion is getting families out of apartments and into houses. My real passion is getting people's finances aligned so they can retire on time. I hated going to Walmart and seeing the greeter being 80 years old. She should not be working. She should be home. Why is she still working? Because she still has a mortgage. I want to help avoid that for you. The other thing I want to help you with, let's make sure your kids don't get saddled with student loans. If you've got a student loan, why did you get one? Maybe because your parents still had a mortgage. I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm being sincere. There's only so much money to go around. What I want to help you do is figure out where you are right now and where you want to be long term. And I do it at SaveWithConrad.com. I've been doing mortgages for more than 20 years. And during all that time, we've helped tens of thousands of families change their life. I mean, routinely, we're helping our podcast listeners save $500, $600, $700, $800 a month. But more importantly, get them out of debt faster and with cheaper monthly payments. But if you don't think it can happen for you, let me just tell you this. We are not the bank. We don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. We're going to get you a game plan on how to improve your credit, how to save a little bit of cash, and how to get into that dream house. Maybe you're already in the house, but it would be nice if someday we could put a pool in the back, or one day we want to upgrade to hardwood floors, or remodel the kitchen, or get a badass master bathroom. I can help you do all of that with no money out of pocket right now at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. And if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. Check it out, savewithconrad.com, NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. And hey, y'all, don't take my word for it. Check us out. We've got an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. And as if that's not enough, go look at our reviews. Read them and weep, haters. ConradReviews.com. You'll see more than 1,000 5-star reviews. Our average review is 4.72 stars. Find out how much money you can save. Take control of your life in 2023. By taking control of your finances, we're going to show you how to keep more of your own money. If you've got credit card debt, what are you paying on that? 14%? 28%? You know you can do better. With the mortgage, though, you may not know this, the interest you pay is tax deductible. And we can even show you how to skip your next 2 house payments. So if you could get a lower monthly payment, pay your debt off faster, get a greater tax deduction at the end of the year, and right now, right after the holidays, skip your next 2 payments, buddy, this is the biggest no-brainer in the history of the world. Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com, or hey man, shoot me an email directly, Conrad@savewithconrad.com.